Devil, Azazel looked up as orange flashes covered the massive basement of the hotel over and over again. He watched the numerous clones of the young blonde flash around as he looked down at his clock. A pretty good showing today.
Think so? Naruto asked, jumping on his toes as he tested his new body out. Or, well, old body, but who would bother with the semantics? He maneuvered lightly on his feet before stopping beside Azazel. How can you tell?
You already passed the bottom line a few minutes ago, which is better than most of the other times we've practiced. The fallen angel lowered his stopwatch and started to jot down numbers on his clipboard. Although going by the average of what we've done, you should be approaching your limit any second now. I gotta say, when you offered to help me figure out the finer details of this balance breaker, I was hoping for something a little more detailed and helpful. Naruto groused, you seem just as in the dark of this as I am. That's because I am just as in the dark as you. Azazel admitted, the idea that something I created as an imitation of the sacred gear system could reach the same level of ability as the originals completely blows my mind. I'd be screaming with joy and pride while partying the night away if my curiosity didn't have the better of me. The fallen angel did seem more focused and attentive instead of his usual flighty, jokester demeanor. I have no precedence for what this ability can do, so I had to determine if this is the default balance breaker or a subspecies. I think you said that before but didn't really tell me what you meant. Did I? Naruto nodded as the older man shrugged. Sorry, when I get excited I just start going on without taking a second to catch my breath. Azazel pointed down to Naruto's arm that once housed his sacred gear. Every sacred gear should be capable of reaching balance breaker, even if every person who has one doesn't have the potential to reach it themselves. When a sacred gear's wielder dies, they pass it on to another person in the world chosen by the sacred gear system. If two users of the same sacred gear reach the same balance breaker, then that means it is most likely the default one for that sacred gear. Opposed to what exactly? A balance breaker forms when a user's emotions are extremely high or their view of the world changes drastically. You, Azazel pointed at Naruto, reached your balance breaker in a moment of extreme turmoil while you were being attacked and Rias was nearly killed. That's what usually happens for a sacred gear wielder to reach the peak of their power. However, if someone's emotions are even stronger than anticipated, their feelings and personality can warp what the sacred gear's balance breaker is supposed to be. In those cases, the subspecies balance breaker can be even stronger than the regular one. So I'm curious to figure out what that means for your golden hour revival. If I made a copy of Remote Looper and gave it to somebody else, would they reach the same balance breaker? Did your desire for strength you had long ago influence how yours formed? Or was it the different variable of having a beast like Kurama bonded to your sacred gear that made it happen? The possibilities are endless? 3, 2, 1. Naruto's body glowed and he returned to his older devil body again. The now taller blonde looked to Azazel as the older man clicked his watch. How about today? 46 minutes. Pretty good. Azazel wrote it down. So your trends continue to suggest you can keep the form anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes. We have yet to find the criteria that determines the duration of your change, so it very well might be random. And for uses. Naruto tensed his arm and focused on Remote Looper. Kurama, any chance? Trying. And nothing. You can only preform it once a day. He wrote down the data before chuckling. Which might seem annoying, but considering you're breaking the laws of nature to return to your body at an earlier point in your personal timeline, it's still pretty impressive. I just need to be picky about when I use it. The young ninja then looked down at his sacred gear once more before raising his eyebrow. He reached down with his other hand and drew his enchanted knife before tossing it up in the air. Azazel watched his movement carefully as he stretched out his hand and aimed his sacred gear at the falling knife. Stop! He had to reach out and catch the falling knife after nothing happened. Still nothing, still nothing. He sighed and holstered his knife again. I don't get it. I know I stopped Shalba Beelzebub in place during the fight. But I can't figure out how to use that skill again since then. Is your product busted or something? Don't know what to tell ya. Azazel shrugged. I'd love to work it out, but I don't know what happened. Remote Looper is supposed to take a fixed event and repeat its effects multiple times in quick succession. It was never meant to freeze a person's time like you said it did. I doubt it was just a one-time thing though, so if we keep testing we might find out more about it. Alright, But sacred gear training can wait for now. Naruto summoned a clone and sent it off to the side as he stood across from Azazel. I've already been your guinea pig for the day. I still owe you a giant G tattoo scrawled over your back to indicate you're the property of the Grigori Research Division. Fuck off, that'll never happen. Anyway, I helped you, so now you help me. In one hand he channeled electricity, and in the other a small tempest formed in his palm. I feel like I'm getting a little closer to making a breakthrough. And I'm expecting the so-called genius that lives under the same roof as me to be able to figure out the missing ingredient. Felt like there was some mocking doubt in calling me a genius right there, but I'm big enough to move past it. Azazel stored his records away and started rotating his shoulders in preparation. Well, after smacking you around for a bit. Show him what you got, Naruto. You can do it, senpai. I am rooting for you, senpai. I believe that you can best Azazel-sensei. Naruto-san. The glory of heaven wishes you luck. The two men paused and looked up to see Zenobia, Kaneko, Gasper, and Irina all standing on the balcony above and watching them like spectators. They relaxed. What the hell are you all doing up there? We were gonna come down here to train, but you looked busy, so we just sat by and watched. Kaneko answered. Now we want to see you fight Azazel-sensei. We're not actually fighting, yeah, cuz I might hurt him. Azazel chuckled and then looked over at Naruto's annoyed glare. Oh come on, I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Like I was saying, we aren't actually fighting. Azazel's just helping me work out some rough patches in my training. So there's nothing cool to see here. You can move along. The groans of disappointment he heard from them made him feel like a father that just told his kids they weren't going to the park. Why are you whining at me? For shame. Azazel shook his head disapprovingly. How could you dash their hopes like that? Oh fuck off. And why do you all want to see us train anyway? The teens looked between each other before Kaneko answered. Things are a little tense upstairs. Tense how? Devil. What do you mean people are claiming doubts about my relationship? I mean there's a lot of buzz going around all of you since the incident with Loki. Graphia, dressed out of her maid uniform and instead in a fancy elegant garb suited for a woman of high standing like her, said while seated in her chair. She spoke calmly while looking at Rias, and all of that attention is only compounding the achievements you gained from fighting back the old Satan faction, thwarting Kokebiel's war efforts, and winning your first rating game against a more experienced opponent like Riser Phoenix. All the victories you've been accumulating have garnered the attention of people around the underworld. Not to mention how popular your character on that child's program is. They can't seriously think I have any form of clout from that ridiculous show. They do, and you'd be surprised how effective popularity like that can be. But with all that popularity comes more eyes. Akeno deduced, joining the ladies in their conversation as they sat together in the common room. And with all those eyes come more opportunities to doubt and criticize. That's right. Graphia nodded as Rias frowned. There were whispers and concerns when people found out that Naruto-san was a being that came from a different realm than anything our world could reach. When he became a servant under your peerage along with the Securite, it was believed that the Gremory family was grooming young potential super elements for use at any convenience. And when you used an evil piece that shouldn't have even worked, it was believed that the Maos were colluding together behind the scenes. That's baseless conjecture. They're just taking what happened and drawing up a wild narrative. I didn't say it was clever or right, Rias, but it is effective if the idea gets passed around enough. Not to mention there's also the issue of the Biju. There are people among the devils worried about what those powerful beasts are capable of. Now that their new existence has come into play with him being the closest thing to a leader they have. A lot of people are worried about what he could do to the power structure of the underworld. Naruto would never. There are people in positions of power that doubt what his motives could be. And there are still arguments that you, a respected noble lady and heir to a family in the 72 Pillars, shouldn't be settling for someone so lowborn and unfamiliar. Rias knew Graphia was only relaying the information she had overheard while working with Searsex. But still hearing her sister-in-law talk about her boyfriend like that nearly crushed her spirit. Graphia and Akeno noticed her dejected expression, and before Graphia could apologize for her brash wording, Akeno decided to change the flow. So what can she do to quell these rumors and whispers? Graphia nodded agreeably. The first step is an evaluation. Evaluation? There are some that want to test you and Naruto-san. Ask you questions. See just what you two are like together. Who's going to be doing this evaluation? I'm sorry but I can't tell you that. Well, when is it? Grafia remained silent and Rias looked down. Oh, soon then. We want you to come down to the underworld tomorrow. When you arrive, I'll be there to greet you along with a few others. We'll take you both to your destination and there your evaluation will begin. Grafia sipped elegantly on her tea before looking at the young devil seriously. This won't make the rumors disappear or absolve everyone's doubts, but if you can handle these people then you'll be in the first steps of changing the minds of everyone. Rias sat silently and contemplated Grafia's warnings as she felt a hand on her knee. She looked over and saw Kano giving her support in her silence. The door opening drew their attention to the side as Naruto, Azazel, and a few others walked in while conversing. The whiskered pawn was wiping some sweat off his cheek before he noticed the tense atmosphere and the pensive look on Ria's face. What happened? Devil, what do you think this test you're taking tomorrow will entail? Zenobia asked. I don't know, but it's got Rias worried, Naruto said as he leaned back in the couch and groaned. Thinking back to the light conversations they had while Grafia was still here, Rias looked tense and thoughtful the entire time. And when he was told about the evaluation, his girlfriend looked dismayed. She retreated to her room for the evening to prepare for tomorrow. Her room? She hadn't slept in her own room since she had moved in next door at the old apartment. He knew something was wrong and knocked at her door to let him in, but she just told him everything was fine and made sure he didn't slip in. Like he believed that for even a second. You're gonna be gone pretty much all day tomorrow, Kaneko said on his lap. I'm not sure what this evaluation is about but be careful. I'll do my best. Honestly, he wasn't that worried about whatever the test was about, but he was concerned about Ria's reaction. But what will happen if we fail? I mean, if some crusty old devils talk bad about me then I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. It does. And you won't fail tomorrow. All heads turned back as Kano appeared in the room, her hand on her hip and an unamused expression as she looked at Naruto. She marched up to the back of the coach, making sure he had to look up and back at her, probably to sell the cadence of her talking down to a simple child. I'm not sure what this test is going to be but it's important. You need to pass it by any means. I thought people already had a bad opinion about me? Aren't I some kind of illegal piece? They already banned me from the rating games so what else could they complain about? Kano sighed. Look. I know you like acting aloof and don't care about what the upper brass may think of you, but that doesn't mean what they think won't matter. Naruto blinked and thought silently before looking back up at her. Oh, it's about how they view Rias, isn't it? As the next head of the Gremory house she can't be dealing with all the other important people around her degrading her partner. That is important and I'm actually impressed you had the mentality to think like that, but no, that's not it either. And no, I'm not telling you what's so important about passing this test. His mouth snapped shut with a frown as she continued. You'll have to figure that out yourself or ask Rias, but I doubt she'll give you a whole answer because she's embarrassed. So make sure not to screw it all up tomorrow. GRH, Naruto growled as he glared up at the queen. You're a lot more of a pain in the ass than you were before, and that's saying something. Oh no, really? It's almost like some brash, irresponsible idiot barreled into my personal business and made a point of making sure I start acting like a person again. Kano sarcastically said before snickering down at him. I'd say this should get you to learn your lesson but I think we both know you're too bull-headed to glean anything out of this experience. Kano waved goodbye and left the room. Naruto was left glowering to himself before he looked down at the Nekomata in his lap. Do you know what she was talking about with Rias? I think I might have an idea. I'm not certain about it though so I'm not telling. Kaneko added, either because I could be wrong or if I'm not then you need to figure it out yourself. Geez, is no one helpful today? He looked over to the other couch. What about you, Zenobia? I'm racking my brain but I can't seem to figure it out either. Well, at least I'm not the only idiot dealing with this problem. I don't think you had to call me an idiot. Sorry but I think it fits better than you'd like it to. Devil. It was very early in the morning when they had to take their train ride to the underworld. Naruto walked around the cabin, anxiously pacing and digging a rut in the carpet as the test he hadn't been worried about yesterday was now leaving him more than a little nervous. And Rias not really talking or acting like her usual confident self only made that worse. He looked over at his girlfriend as she sat by herself, looking down with a forlorn expression as they ticked ever closer to the underworld. She had chosen to forego her usual Kuo attire for something different. It wasn't as casual or comfy looking as the clothes she wore on their date, but they weren't too formal like a suit. The button-up shirt and blouse with the long skirt looked like something she wore in the company of new people. He felt stupid just wearing a long-sleeved shirt and jeans. Was this going to affect how the testers would view him? Had he already made a mistake before even arriving at the evaluation? Calm down. You're stressing way too much. Stopping in place and taking a deep breath, Naruto started to ease his nerves and stepped over to the bar in the corner. Thankfully Kurama was here to talk some sense through the panic. I can't believe you're panicking in the first place. You're not usually affected by stuff like this. Because it's not just my reputation and image at stake. It's Ria's life that might take damage for how I act. He whispered as he sat at the counter and stared longingly at the mirrored reflection between the bottles. It's one thing for me to act this way when I don't have a reputation to protect, but it's different for her. She's respected. She's going to be someone important and make waves with the position when she gains it. She's noble and hardworking and I'm not gonna be the one that drags her down with my behavior. Damn, when you put it like that it's no wonder she's worried. Naruto silently nodded and looked back in the mirror and caught a glimpse of Rias in the corner of it. His eyes instead focused not on her reflection but the bottles around it. He tilted his head. Should I get her a drink? Pretty early. Do you think it's wise to risk inebriation before taking this test? Not enough time get her drunk but just calm her nerves. Isn't that what happens in those movies and in the stories and stuff? The suave, cool guy brings over a prepared drink to give the beautiful woman. PFFT. Are you supposed to be the suave guy in that scenario? Shut up. So do you think she'd like that or if it'll make things a little easier between us? I am sorry, are you asking me about your relationship? Forget it. You're so desperate you turned to me? Enough. Are you so bad at this stuff that you have to ask me, the millennium-old fox demon, for advice on love? I said shut the fuck up, Naruto. Are you okay? He nearly jumped out of his seat as Rias had walked up to his side while he was busy arguing. You're kinda just yelling to yourself over here. Sorry Rias, talking with Kurama. He asked me something stupid and I just had to laugh. He snarled at the sacred gear in his arm. You know I always seem to forget how big of a dick you are. I keep you humble and grounded. He just said that. Naruto looked to Rias with a smirk. The ancient fox demon living in my body and talking through my arm said he's the most grounded thing in my life. Hee hee. Rias chuckled, losing some of the gloomy expression she had earlier as she sat down beside him. What were you two talking about? He shrugged. I was wondering if you might want a drink. Something to relax. You looked kinda tense over there. Rias looked over the counter and towards the bar. She then stood out of her seat and reached over the counter as the sound of bottles clacking echoed out. She pulled out a large bottle of wine and held it out to him. This one is pretty good. He took it, stared at the bottle that was totally indistinguishable to him from the others, and then up at his lovely girlfriend. How can you tell this is a good one? It's good. Trust me. That was pretty much all he needed. He popped the cork, watching it fly across the cabin with a whistle from him and a giggle from Rias. Then he reached over the counter and grabbed 2 thin flutes before pouring the blood-red liquid into them. When they were full he held one out for Rias to take and gently knocked his against hers with a smile. When she turned it to her lips and so easily downed the rich beverage, Naruto could only watch in amazement. How can you drink this stuff so easily? It's not that hard. I've been having drinks like this since I was younger. Part of growing up attending big parties and gatherings between houses. Rias pulled some hair out of her face and Naruto couldn't process just how lovely and mature she looked. Like a fully grown woman in her attire and drink in hand. Why are you so surprised? You've drunken before. You had that drink of Azazel's with Akano and I when we came here for training, remember? He scoffed. You're giving me too much credit calling that drinking. I suffered through it and threw it back while my face scrunched up into a single point. I just can't handle the taste of it. You get used to it. Some drinks taste better than others. But would you like a tip for making it easier? He nodded and she smiled. Don't let it touch your tongue. Swallow it back instead of tasting it. That was the advice I got when I first had a drink. It's still pretty tough but it's not as bad. He looked down at his wine and shrugged before trying it out. Naruto drank from his flute, doing his best to pass the liquid down his throat without touching his tongue. However he gulped too much at once and pulled it back with a cough. Oh okay, that was harder than I thought. But better to drink with, right? I guess so. Easier to swallow than the other stuff. His awkward chuckle earned a more energetic laugh from her. As the two sat in silence and laughed about silly, unimportant things, Naruto noticed her attitude and demeanor change back into her usual style. He reached forward and gently took her hand, gently rolling his thumb over her smaller fingers as she looked up at him. Are you okay? If she had hoped her poor energy had gone unnoticed, that was clearly dashed as she looked down with guilt. I am. I'm just worried about this. Of course. We're taking some weird test in front of people we have no idea about for a frankly stupid reason. If you weren't worried about this, then I'd be worried for you. She laughed at his goofy expression and he felt his heart soar hearing her laugh like that. He squeezed her hand gently. Rias, I know I kinda mess up with keeping an image and presenting myself in front of people I don't know, but I promise I won't mess this up. These guys will see that I can definitely make a better impression. After everything she had done for him and given him, he was ready to do whatever it took to prove himself to these people. Whatever he had to do to meet their expectations, he was ready to fulfill them. But from the look on her face, he couldn't help but feel he said something wrong. Alright. Thank you, Naruto. Rias, the train's whistle blew and slowly came to a stop. The two young devils placed their drinks down and walked over to the door. It slowly hissed open to reveal the 5 people standing on the other side. Welcome, Oni-sama? They were surprisingly met by Searsex with Graphia by his side, once more in her familiar maid outfit. I didn't think you'd be here. And, what about all of them? Hey Ria-tan. Hey Naru-chan. I missed you. The sweet, peppy voice of Seraphal Leviathan greeted them from the side. The short twin-tailed Mao waved to them energetically. I've been looking forward to this so much. Ejuka-san. Naruto sweated, fretting as the green-haired devil approached. What are you doing here? Searsex said there was going to be an evaluation of yours and Rias-kun's current status as devils. I thought considering I helped train you and that you house my prototype, pawn, in you, I should come make sure you can handle the matter. You bet. And it won't have anything to do with you training me or torturing me or blowing me up, right? Right. Days young. We'll see. Rias felt the need to squeeze his shoulder so he didn't pass out. Naruto, this man is Falbium Asmodeus-sama, the last of the 4 Mao that watch over the underworld. Asmodeus-sama, this is Naruto Uzumaki, my pawn and lover. Z's. They stared at the bald man in silence as his head rolled forward and softly snoozed. Naruto looked to her. He's sleeping. It's early. He's not used to getting up at times like this. Then why did we have to come this early? To be fair, he'd probably just be sleeping at any point in the day. Then how the fuck is someone like that a Mao? Don't look at me. It was before I was born. The two quickly realized their whispering could easily be heard by the leaders of the underworld. Rias coughed before looking at her brother, Lucifer-sama. Will it be you and the other Maos that are administrating this test we have come to take? Oh no, Searsex shook his head. We're just here to greet you and wish you luck. We wish we could be there to give you support, but we are very busy and can't spare the time. That being said, don't take these people lightly. They hold the same level of authority as we Maos do on this matter, so show them the reverence and respect they deserve when you meet them. The two nodded before the older man stepped aside and motioned for their car. Then here's your ride. I wish you both the best of luck. Devil, the car had a valet waiting for them, and when they stepped in they were driven through several territories before reaching their destination. A massive uninhabited forest with a large temple in the center of it. As the car pulled away and the two young devils were left alone in this unfamiliar setting, Naruto looked around and asked, do you know what this place is? I do. Rias murmured as she sighed at the sight of the ruin. I should have figured they'd bring us here. She looked over to him. This is called the Ruin of Connection. It's an ancient, sacred site for the Gremory family. Past generations have come here with their dearest other to take part in a test. She said that with a blush, and the term she used caused Naruto's cheeks to warm up as well. When they said it was an evaluation, I didn't think they'd make us take this test. So they made it sound like it was some kind of test to see how we'd act as figures of a powerful house. But in actuality it was just some dumb love quiz? Naruto deflated. I've been worrying about this all night, damn it. This is so embarrassing. Rias whimpered into her hands. Her face as red as her hair as it spread up to her ears. I didn't think they'd make us go through this stupid test so early. I didn't think I'd ever have to go through it. Seriously? Were you going to abolish the test when you became the next head or something? And no, I mean I never thought I'd have a boyfriend or lover when I was younger, Rias exclaimed. I mean I wasn't really interested in boys and there was no one that caught my attention, but then I met you. And love bloomed. And from that love comes so many feelings: boldness, timidity, introspection, ignorance, excitement, dread. All of these things go in hand when you find yourself enamored with another. But how will you act in front of others? How will that love affect you? This is what we're here to test today. The two were surprised when 5 silhouettes suddenly appeared in the ruins in front of them. The first of the figures, a tall masculine figure in a tight red uniform and helmet, stepped forward. He spun around on his foot and wildly changed the way he stood as he posed. The hero of the underworld. Hell's greatest hope. The children's charismatic champion. I am Satan Red. Another figure in the same outfit but blue stepped forward. He did some wild posing as well. A brilliant mind. A careful contemplation. I am the underworld's wary warrior, Satan Blue. A green one stepped up next. I don't really want to do this for long, so I'm Satan Green. Hiya. A smaller, feminine warrior in pink jumped forward as her generous bust bounced in her skin-tight outfit. I'm your favorite heroine. The girl of magic and sparkles. All the little girls of the world can look to me and find their inspiration. The hero of justice. The savior of joy, it's Levi. Ahem. Satan Pink. Nice to meet ya. All eyes turned to the last figure. Another woman, with a larger bust and more pronounced curves. She stepped forward without any of the flash or presentation. She simply waved a limp hand up, Satan Yellow. And together, we are the Satan Rangers. Several explosions of red, blue, green, pink, and yellow smoke exploded behind them in spectacular fashion to complete their showcase. Naruto and Rias just stared at them in silence and shock. Oh wow. I don't know what could possibly be clenching on my body without my control, but it definitely is. Sirzex, Serafal, Graphia, Ajuka, and the other Mao they just met. It was so totally them. If their voices weren't a dead giveaway, then the fact they called themselves the exact same titles as the Maos was the clincher. It was just painful seeing something so awkward as this. Who are you? Rias declared, identify yourselves. Oh god, is she fucking serious? Are Rias? Naruto stuttered. They're your brother and the other Maos. Isn't that obvious? What? Rias looked back at the men and women across from her before shaking her head. No, that's impossible. It can't be Oni-sama and the other Maos. They had business to take care of today. And there are only 4 of them while these are 5 people. It's the Maos and Graphia-san. Okay, now you're just reaching. Rias, how can you not, Naruto? Rias stepped in front of him and sighed before looking up at him thoughtfully. I know the Maos might not give off the best impression of leadership. Oni-sama never seems to take things seriously enough. Serafal-sama is more enamored with living out a magical fantasy than she is doing her duty. Ajuka-sama can only ever focus on his experiments, and Falbium-sama is asleep almost all the time. But behind those shortcomings are 4 of the finest devils in the world. They lead our people through the greatest of problems and always focus on how they can help others. They wouldn't waste their time coming here to play dress up. And Graphia? Graphia is the most responsible person I know. She's composed. She's hardworking. She never lets things get out of hand. She's the one that makes sure my brother and all the other people around him never get too off track. So I doubt she'd ever want to get involved in something as ridiculous as this. Naruto looked over her head and saw the previously posing Satan Rangers now looking guilty and embarrassed. Except for the Yellow Ranger. She was currently curled up in a ball and quietly sobbing to herself while swatting away the Red Ranger's sympathetic hand. He then looked back down at Ria's unwavering expression. She truly believed everything she had said about the people she looked up to. They were. How could, should they, wouldn't. Ow. Ow. Naruto rubbed his temples as a sudden violent migraine rocked his brain. I can't. I just can't. Give me a second. We are here to test, I said, give me a second. Naruto. You heard Oni-sama. We need to give these people the same level of respect we give the Maos. I know. That's exactly what I'm doing. Naruto took a drop breath and then exhaled before clapping. Okay. Repressed that. Let's get into it. What are we doing? You're running tests and trials. Satan Pink yelled cheerfully. We're gonna be evaluating you in 3 stages. To see if you cute little lovebirds have got what it takes to handle a relationship and inherit the Gremory name. We'll be waiting for you at each checkpoint, Red exclaimed. Ready? Go. The Satan Rangers dashed into the ruins and left the 2 younger devils standing outside by themselves. They looked between each other before Rias shrugged. I suppose we should follow them, right? Sure. I'm already terrified of what this day has to offer us, so walking into the monster's den seems right on track. Devil. Howdy kids. You ready to push through your first obstacle? Satan Pink greeted them with a lively wave and giggle. They were sure behind that helmet was a smiling, probably winking lady who was happy to have them test her trial first, because I promise that it isn't gonna be an easy challenge to win. We're ready for anything. I'm glad to hear it, because your challenge is. Pink Satan raised her hands and snapped her fingers. Suddenly speakers, amplifiers, and mood lighting filled the whole room. Dancing. Dancing? Seriously? In the future you'll be invited to lots of parties and fancy balls for celebrations, birthdays, galas, and pretty much any time someone of nobility wants to throw a banger. So you'll need to know how to properly engage and participate in those scenarios. Pink started to shake her butt and bounce on her feet, so show me how you dance. Rias looked up at Naruto in time to see him looking at her as well. They shrugged and chuckled at the ridiculousness of the test before stepping up closer to Pink. They turned to each other, one of Naruto's hands settling on her waist and one of Rias holding his shoulder as their remaining one intertwined. As the music reached a familiar rhythm, they started to move and sway together. The 2 young lovers danced around the floor in time to the beat. I'm really surprised. Rias whispered as they moved. You only had 1 lesson with my mother and yet you seem to remember everything so well. You can blame your mother and her Spartan training for that. He shook his head. 1 lesson beaten into me by your horrifying mother, and that's all I needed. I'm sure she'll take that as a compliment. Rias giggled before the song slowed to a stop and their dance was over. The crimson-haired devil stepped away from her partner and curtsied. Thank you for the dance. Naruto bowed. Milady. Pink started clapping. Very good, Captain Beat. Nice teamwork. And you got your flirting game on strong. I'm proud of you too. Thank you Satan Pink, we're honored to have completed your. Now comes the next part. Pink snapped her fingers again and the music became wilder and more upbeat, freestyle. What? But I thought the trial was only concerned with making sure we could dance. We did that. Well yeah, but not every party is gonna be held by a stuffy, bloated noble that can't even get up on their feet. There are gonna be young people asking you out too. And when that happens, are you just gonna be standing there waltzing across the dance floor like a couple of geriatric swingers? No, Pink started to pop and lock, do the robot, and then transition into a very smooth moonwalk. You gotta get on the floor and style on them. I didn't. Naruto gawked in disbelief as the not very well disguised Mao started to bust a move in front of them. I didn't think this would be how my day went. He palmed his face, but honestly I don't know why I'm surprised. Rias, should we stop her? Rias. See, come on, Naruto. Ria's body was already starting to move to the rhythm. Her hips and waist shook seductively while her breasts jiggled under her blouse. The way her body moved was captivating, but the pink hue on her cheeks that slowly spread and grew darker betrayed the intent of her movement. The Gremory woman muttered, "We have to show Satan Pink that we can handle whatever she throws at us. Can we? Because I can barely dance and you look like you're gonna explode." She frowned in his direction and he rolled his eyes before complying. He started to move his body, attempting to copy both Rias and Pink's movements but looking very stiff in comparison. He shook his head. This sucks. No. You can't be looking that robotic. And don't dance away from each other. This is the kinda music where you can make babies. Pink huffed and stomped over to them before grabbing Naruto's wrist. Come here. Hey. There, she tossed him over to stand by Ria's side as the young couple looked at her in confusion. I'm gonna have to show you how to do this. Now big guy, you stand behind her. Okay. Naruto shuffled over behind Rias. Like this? Yes. Now put your hands on her hips. Or better yet, wrap your arms around her waist. The whiskered devil nervously followed her order and circled his arms around her waist. connecting his hands together over her skirt and pressing his chest into her back. Good, good. Now you're getting intimate. Now hold his hands tightly like you don't want them going anywhere. Rias agreed, resting her hands over his while they hovered over her skirt. Her heart started to pound faster as she felt Naruto's fit chest rub against her back. His hot breath passed over her ear and tickled her neck. With every little motion he made, she felt it run along her spine. She also felt how he hardened along her backside. Gulping down the frog in her throat, Rias slowly started to move her hips to the beat of the song. Naruto followed her lead, carefully and sensually moving to her rhythm as everything else faded away around them. Rias' breathing turned into a soft pant as her entire body felt hot. He held her so closely that she could feel his body to hers. It almost felt like they were naked. Great. Pink started a congratulatory clapping that pulled the teenagers out of their dance, quickly separating from each other and straightening their clothes. Now that was a dance. Do that at a party and you're bound to get noticed. Why yeah, I'm sure people would be looking at us. We shouldn't do that in public. Now for the next part. Several people suddenly arrived and started moving in time with Pink's extravagant dance moves. What will you do when challenged by a sparkling young lady and her dance troupe? This woman is crazy, devil. Naruto and Rias made their way through the hallway of the ruins together after completing Pink's challenge. Despite only being the first trial of the day, the two devils already found themselves exhausted. Not just from the dancing but from, well, all of it. These trials might be more of a handful than I expected. It was going to be especially tough if each ranger had stages to their challenge. And even worse if each one was as eccentric as Pink. Rias looked over and saw Naruto staring at the ground with a dejected, forlorn expression. I thought we handled that last challenge very well. He stayed silent. I also thought it was a good move to create clones to act as my backup dancers, and change their appearance too. Rias, can we never speak of what happened back there? Thank you. I found the part where you were grinding up against yourself to match Pink's dancers very tasteful. Rias flinched as his hands slapped his face and he screamed into his palms. Yes, that part must have been. Well, no one should have to experience something like that. Especially the memories of both sides of the dance. With that, her thoughts lingered back to the dance they shared together. Both the waltz and then the more intimate one after. Again a blush burned her cheeks, remembering just how close and intimate they got when advised by Pink. That heat. That pressure. The closeness. Which she felt pressed up against her body. What she wanted more of but didn't get. Rias, the crimson-haired devil nearly jumped out of her skin when she was called out of her thoughts. Realizing he was staring at her in confusion, Rias blushed and waved her hand. Sorry, lost in thought. What were you saying? I said we've hit the next trial. She followed his finger and saw another Satan standing in their path. And Satan Green is here to greet us. The tall green man stood in their way and did not move as they approached. We're here, Green, and after what we just went through we're ready for anything. So what have you got for us? He didn't answer. Rias stepped up instead. Satan Green, we're ready for your trial. They looked at each other before Rias stepped up, cautiously making sure it wasn't a trap. When she reached the taller man, she leaned in closely. He's sleeping. Oh, for fuck's sake. Naruto cursed before clapping his hands. Wake up. Whoa. Green stumbled on his feet and shook his head, trying to rub his eyes before remembering there was a helmet in his way. Oh, welcome. I see you finally arrived at my trial. I've been waiting patiently for you to get here. Yeah, and you were so patient you seem to have taken a nap as well. Rias elbowed his side. Fine. So what is our challenge this time? Yes, Satan Green, Rias said. What do we have to prove at this point? Well, I'm glad you asked. Green nodded. I put a lot of thought into this challenge, and at the behest of Sir W. Wait, no, that's not it. Green paused and scratched his helmet. Oh damn. What was he calling himself this time? Ahem. Red. Thank you, young man. Green nodded appreciatively to Naruto. At the behest of Satan Red, I have chosen a challenge that will test your composure and capability during high tension. He snapped his fingers as a dinner table appeared by their side. Several maids and butlers arrived as well and started setting the table. We'll be testing your table manners. First dancing and now dining etiquette. What was with these tests? They sat across from Green and watched as the ranger pulled up a portion of his helmet to reveal his lower face. Naruto saw Rias reach for her napkin and lay it across her lap. He quickly copied her movement and laid out his as well. He made sure to watch her through the corner of his eyes, copying the utensils and mannerisms she used. Venelana taught him table manners during her training, but it was so long ago that he had a harder time remembering it than the physical training the dancing required. He fumbled around with the wrong utensil once or twice, and he was sure he dug into the meal with the wrong one as well, but he thought he was doing well. It didn't look like Green was judging him or unimpressed. Although considering this was a Mao that napped while standing up, he wasn't sure if the man could even judge anyone. So you two have been causing quite a stir recently. Green engaged as he cut his food. Everyone in the underworld is talking about your victory against Loki. That's quite a feat. I doubt many people here could have matched that accomplishment, even the Mao themselves. I'm sure the exalted Maos would have been able to handle it, Rias said with a faint smile, hearing their accomplishment being noted. It certainly wasn't an easy fight. That wolf nearly killed me. You survived an attack by Fenrir? Survive is giving me too much credit. Naruto chuckled. I just didn't die fast enough before Asia got to me. If there was so much risk, how did you end up winning? Luck and desperation, really. Naruto answered. When things were at their worst, I tapped into an ability I didn't know I had and accessed power I thought I lost a long time ago. Does that power have anything to do with the beasts that accompanied you from that other world? Well, yes and no, he shrugged. It wasn't either of them, but it was similar to the kind of power they could give to people back from my world. Well, I say give, but it was more like a forced symbiotic relationship at best. Forced? I see. Green picked at his food for a moment, but that's still quite impressive. You can access the power to match a god in battle at your whim. And I thought it was only the Red Dragon Emperor that had that kind of talent in your young peerage. Issei is certainly strong and growing even stronger, but he still has a ways to go. Naruto's new ability is amazing as well, but he can't sustain it for long. But I know him, so I'm sure he'll be figuring out how to control it completely in no time. He smiled at her and she giggled before looking down at her plate. I think they'll both be forces to deal with before you know it. I can believe that. Green chuckled before placing down his utensils and wiping his mouth. Okay, I think that's enough for this trial. They both carefully put down their knives and forks as they waited for the Seidan Ranger's evaluation. I would say you both passed. Rias Gremory showed excellent form and grace. Not surprising considering the lessons you must have taken while in the Gremory. And Naruto Uzumaki, while certainly rough and still making some errors, passed by a fairly small margin. I would suggest practicing by yourself more often until you don't have to look at either myself or her for guidance. Naruto nervously laughed and scratched his cheek as Rias giggled at his side. And as far as dinner conversation would go, then you both fail. Rias and Naruto looked up at him in surprise. What do you mean? What we discussed and talked about while we ate. The topic of conversation and how you approached it. Did we insult you or something? Not at all. I found your company enjoyable and what we talked about was very enlightening. His helmet clicked back down into place over his lower face. But what you revealed to me about such delicate subjects and your own abilities was a misstep you can't afford to make. What? I came into this dinner knowing you somehow pulled out a victory against Loki, the god of mischief from Norse mythology. Now I know it was the efforts of not just one fighter. This young man had a hand in it, with power he gained from his world, but still not enough to handle a being as strong as Fenrir. I also know you can't hold onto this power for an extended period of time. I've already figured out 3 ways I could beat you if the need arose, and it's only 3 because I started strategizing at the beginning of this sentence. And I also know now that the power you used to fight Loki comes in part from those new beasts we have roaming our world. Green looked between them critically. This shouldn't exactly surprise you, but the 2-tailed cat in the Gremory territory and the 3-tailed turtle in the north have drawn a lot of attention. They were center stage on an attack in one of our cities and were used as weapons by the Chaos Brigade to attack us. There are a lot of nobles and high-class devils that are interested in them. Naruto swallowed the lump in his throat. Why are you telling us this? Because in the future you'll be meeting a great deal of people that will take interest in these matters for less than noble reasons. Their intentions might be genuine. They could truly wish to help you in whatever cause you may bring to them. But it's also possible they could be helping you to further their goals and take advantage of your situation. There are any number of people that would like to take your tailed beasts and use them for their own purposes. Like who? The Biel for one. No, Rias shook her head. Cyroorg would never stoop to something so low. Green nodded, you're right. Cyroorg Biel has too much integrity to ever do something like that. But we know the same can't be said for everyone in that family. Naruto looked over at Rias as she opened her mouth to retort before slowly looking down at the table. Looks like Cyroorg might have been the white sheep of that family. Think carefully about what you say around people you don't trust yet. In the world of nobility and politics, any slip of information could turn into an ace up someone's sleeve or an opportunity to take what you have. It might sound sad and paranoid to think like that, but it's something to consider. The door to the next trial opened and Green waved them through. Good luck on your next trial. Devil, are you okay? Naruto asked as he watched Rias walk with a frustrated expression. I was careless. Rias lamented, these are lessons I've learned years ago. Okawa-sama and Oto-sama spent so much time teaching me that when eating with others of power you should always consider what you reveal. But I completely ignored what I learned. She let out a frustrated groan and shook her head. I'm getting complacent. I'm forgetting what I know. Rias, he reached over and grabbed her shoulders to turn her towards him. It's okay. You don't need to beat yourself up. I'm pretty sure that was more of a lesson for me than it was for you. She didn't look placated at all by his efforts to ease her anger. I'm sorry I didn't see that test coming. It's not your fault. Rias whispered as she hung her head. She stared at their feet for a few moments before looking up at him with trepidation. Naruto, do you regret coming here with me today? What? No, forget it. Rias pulled away from his grasp and made a quick step towards their next location. Let's just keep going. Rias, wait, before he could reach her, they had arrived at their next checkpoint. And everything Naruto wanted to say died on his tongue when he saw the Blue Ranger standing there waiting for them. He nervously waved to the disguised Mao. Hey there, Aju said in Blue-san. How are you doing? You idiot, don't show your fear, he'll smell it. Welcome, Seiden Blue cordially greeted them with a polite nod. I'll be the proctor for this portion of your examination. This trial will be very forward and traditional. A test of knowledge of devil history and families. He waved his hand and summoned a pair of desks with pencils and paper in the center. We can begin as soon as you are ready. Blue tilted his head curiously as Naruto raised his hand. Do you have a question? Yeah, is there some kind of secret test or trial you'll be testing us on? Like if these are trick questions or maybe how we go about retaining information? I'm not sure what you mean. Seiden Green tested us on table manners and etiquette but was also secretly testing us on our abilities to judge how a conversation goes and when to keep information secret. Oh, I understand. Seiden Green does like to work things in layers. He makes you think you're working one problem while testing how you'll react to so many other factors at the same time. He's smart but it can be overwhelming. And Pink made a slow dance and then do a dance battle because they looked at each other and shrugged. Well, honestly, we don't know why. She probably shouldn't have done that. Blue muttered. No, I don't like to hide tests or secretly evaluate people. I prefer to make tests clear and understood by everyone I'm testing. He pointed to the desks. So please take your seats and we shall begin. They sat at the desks and prepared for the test. Once again, they were left bewildered by the fact these trials had no form or structure for them to expect. First a dance battle. Then fancy dining. And now a test with written and multiple choice aspects. Today was crazy. Taking an actual test should have caused Naruto some worry, but he was confident he was going to do okay. Not because he knew the material that well or anything. But he had learned new things since the first round of the Chunin exam all those years ago. While Seiden Blue was distracted, Naruto had discreetly created some clones and sent them out to collect information. They should be reaching out to some of the other Mao and getting some intel on what the test would entail. When they did have something they would pop themselves and send the information back to him. He wasn't gonna risk screwing this test up. Just one look over the material made Naruto realize he only barely retained the information he had learned during his training in Hell. So he was leaving it to his clones to help, and the first one should be coming back to him. Now, Naruto sat silently with only the sound of Ria's pencil scratching her paper to cut the silence. Why didn't the clone pop yet? He said every 5 minutes one should dispel and come back to him. Even if they were destroyed they would send their experience back too. Oh, and this should go without saying, but no cheating. Blue warned while a magic circle floated over his hands. Not that I would expect such underhanded methods from either of you, but just thought it should be said. Understood? Crystal, sir. Devil, welcome. Satan Red greeted the young couple with Satan Yellow at his side. They walked into a large coliseum that looked like it could seat 1,000 people. The kooky ranger chortled loudly as they approached. You made it this far, so I suppose you passed. We passed Pink's dancing lesson. We made it through Green's table manners but didn't pass his speaking criteria. And I passed Blue's test but Naruto. I was a few points under. Naruto grumbled to himself in frustration, damn it. And I was closer than I thought, I just, damn it. That's okay. Yellow eased their worries with a kind and understanding tone. You both did very well in an examination you weren't prepared for. I'm sure if you had time you would be able to prepare and do even better. Thank you, Satan Yellow, Rias graciously said, but just because we didn't prepare doesn't mean us nearly failing doesn't count, does it? Yellow solemnly remained quiet, I see. But there is a chance to even the score and earn a passing grade. There is? How? By her side. Red made a show of raising his hands and then lowering them in a classic tokusatsu battle pose. He then held his hand out flat before inviting them to come at him. The two youngsters looked at Yellow as she sighed. You have to engage, Satan Red. She shivered before taking a calming breath, in battle. Okay, then I'll do it. Naruto stepped forward. I'm the reason we screwed up and I'll be the one to fix it. He looked back at Rias just as she was reaching out to him. Don't worry, I'll make up for what I've done. Rias looked conflicted by what he said, but before she could speak, Yellow put a hand on her shoulder. She motioned them to the seats and Rias reluctantly agreed before they walked away. When they were gone, it was just Naruto and Satan Red left in the center of the Coliseum. The two men stood across from each other in preparation for the battle. She looked quite distressed. Satan Red noted as he started to doing animated stretches to loosen up. Do you have any idea why? I think it's because I'm not doing as well as I should, Naruto said. Red tilted his head. I beg to differ. You do? Then what is? Ah, you can't ask me, young ward. He shook his head robotically before taking his battle stance. This is a matter you must resolve yourself. The only thing we'll be doing is battling for the honor of victory. You're taking this too far, Searsex. Why are you calling me Searsex Lucifer? I am Satan Red? I'm honestly shocked by your level of commitment. Raising his hand, Naruto channeled his demonic power and converted it to lightning that sparked between his fingers. He whipped his hand forward and sent the bolt flying at Satan Red. The masked hero raised his hand and let the lightning fizzle out against his palm. You gonna take this seriously? Do you want me to go all out? That would be quite the show we put on, but it would be dangerous. Why don't we just start warming up and see where we go to from there? Sounds fair. Naruto created several dozen clones that quickly rushed Satan Red as the costumed hero started striking poses again. The army of blonde ninjas jumped him, hoping to overwhelm him with numbers. But Satan Red moved swiftly, striking the clones with jabs and sweeping kicks that destroyed them. His attacks didn't look like they had much buildup or power, and yet each one effortlessly destroyed another clone. That's when Naruto got the memories transferred back to him. Each attack had a hint of ethereal black and red energy at the end of it. He was using his destruction to efficiently destroy each clone without exerting too much power or energy. His control was leaps and bounds greater than Rias' use of destruction. This guy ain't one of the leaders of devils everywhere for nothing. You're right. As the horde of clones surrounding the masked man vanished, Naruto looked down to the clone by his side who was still meditating. He bonked it on the head and felt a rush of natural energy flood his system as he achieved Sage Mode. An excited smirk came to his face as he cracked his fist against his palm. Let's see how he deals with this. Naruto leapt off the ground and dashed, covering the distance between them in an instant before shifting into a flying kick. Satan Red ducked down as Naruto sailed over his head. The blonde stretched out his wings and stopped his momentum in the air before dropping back down. He looked up as Satan Red stood over him and brought a fist down towards his head. Naruto's hand dug into the ground with a crunch before swinging up, causing the floor beneath them to explode out and forcing Satan Red to jump back. As his opponent retreated, Naruto channeled fire into his palm and released a mighty plume of flames. The flames immediately died away and Satan Red landed in a triumphant pose. Not gonna be easy fighting a guy that can destroying everything. We can't rely on long-range attacks. Naruto cracked his neck before dashing over the field. He came at Satan Red and avoided a punch the masked man threw on reflex. As he dodged aside, he threw a counter hook that Red stopped by grabbing his wrist. The two men then struggled against each other as they tried to overpower the other. Naruto built up his demonic power, transformed it to wind, and mixed it with the natural power that formed in his body. Ha! A violent gust exploded out of his body and sent Red flying back. Naruto chambered his fist. Set. Red landed on his feet and raised his fists and Naruto bared down on him. They started to exchange punches and kicks. Every blow Naruto landed either blocked or countered with a kick under his guard. The two exchanged attacks for nearly a whole minute before separating. What now? 3x. Loop. Naruto watched Satan Red's body shake and buckle as the hits he landed reverberated through his system. He also felt all the attacks he suffered repeat through his body several times over. Once the effect of his remote looper had ended, neither of them were much worse for wear. Well, young warrior. Red waved his arms around before dropping into another fighting stance. Is this the most you can muster? Looks like we need to up the ante. Hope there's nothing else happening today. Naruto pulled his sleeve back and raised his right arm to show off his sacred gear, Golden Hour Revival. Return. Naruto's whole body was enveloped with light as his balance breaker activated and he returned to his previous self. Satan Red watched him carefully as his body transformed. He immediately ducked down as a flaming orange body flashed his way with a flying kick. Turning back, he saw Naruto standing a few yards away, bouncing on his feet as an orange chakra cloak covered his body. Satan Red chuckled. Well, is this the exalted balance breaker I've heard so much about? I'm impressed. Hold that excitement a little bit longer. Naruto smirked. I'm about to show you a whole lot more. Devil. Rias watched anxiously as her boyfriend fought the Satan Ranger in an intense battle across the Colosseum. The two fighters exchanged attacks of immense power in quick repetition. Satan Red was extraordinarily strong, but Naruto appeared to be keeping up with him at the moment. He was so strong now. No, this was how strong he was before coming to their world. It wasn't that long ago that they could stand by each other and fight together, and now, she just had to sit on the sidelines and watch him leave her behind. Everyone in her peerage was growing stronger and evolving. But she was just the same as always. Are you alright? Yellow asked by her side as they watched the fight. You look distracted. Oh, yes, I'm fine. Rias lied and crossed her arms as she watched the fight play out. I'm just worried about how this is escalating. Naruto's balance breaker gives him so much power that I can't believe it, and I don't know how strong Satan Red is supposed to be, but he's keeping up. He's actually starting to get into it. The masked woman beside her noted, I don't think we expected the fight to be this serious. But it's exciting, isn't it? Rias looked back in surprise to see they had been joined by others at their spot in the seats. Seraphal sat behind them with her pink helmet in her lap and her pink outfit unbuttoned so she could get some air. I can't remember the last time Sears X-chan had fun in a fight. It certainly has been a while, but I think it's more because I haven't challenged him enough recently, Ijuka said with his blue helmet by his feet. He looks sloppy. Falbium yawned. I think all this relaxing and desk work has really started to dull his edge. Maybe he's getting into it to knock some of the rust off his body. Seraphal-sama? Ijuka-sama? Falbium-sama? Rias was shocked to see the four Mao dressed in such odd attire. She stared at them in disbelief as Naruto's crazed rambling earlier echoed in her head. He was right from the start. The Satan Rangers really were. Oh no, her brother really was in that ridiculous outfit, wasn't he? As she groaned into her palms, she turned to the yellow-clad woman beside her, Gray. Whoever you think I am, I'm not. She was very defensive. Deciding to just let her be, Rias looked back out at the fight as Naruto and his clones came at her brother from all directions. Each one had a variation of a Rasengan in their hands and attacking in hopes of catching him off guard. But he dispelled either the jutsu or the clones with a wave of his hand, using what she now knew was his destruction to protect himself. This was the first time she had seen him fight so seriously in years. And Naruto looked like he was fighting even harder than when he fought Loki. They're really getting into it, aren't they? Maybe Naruto-kun feels like he needs to redeem himself for the mistakes he made in the exam?
He wants to prove he's worthy of Ria-tan's love. Ah, so romantic.
Rias listened to the mouse speak beside her as she watched her beloved fight tooth and nail to earn the respect of those around them. Her hands tightened in the hem of her skirt. Devil. Naruto slid along the ground and tried to knock Red's legs out from under him. The costumed hero leapt over his attack, but while he was in mid-air, Naruto's ethereal hands stretched out from his back to attack him. Destruction coated Red's hands as he eradicated portions of Naruto's chakra to protect himself. Red raised his arms and guarded against the drop kick from Naruto after he flashed over his head. Forcing his arms out, Naruto flipped back and spun through the air before sliding over the ground. We're going to have to pull out all the stops. You don't think that might cause a big mess? You think anything less will stop him? Good point. Naruto leapt back and raised his hand up, creating two hands of chakra over his palm as he quickly formed a Rasen Shuriken. He reeled his arm back and yelled before launching it straight towards Satan Red. The Satan Ranger watched as the attack of immense chakra sailed straight towards him. He formed an orb of destruction and sent it out to intercept the jutsu. A powerful explosion formed between the two of them as their attacks impacted each other. As the explosion died out and revealed the massive crater that formed between them, the two men met eyes and prepared for the next stage of their battle. Satan Red raised his fists as Naruto lowered his stance. As he did, his Biju form let him sense all the emotions and feelings around him. Excitement. Expectation. Exhilaration. Anger. His eyes widened before his head shot to the side. Don't get distracted now, young warrior, Satan Red proclaimed, for our honorable battle has only just. Hey, shut up. Naruto yelled with his hand outstretched. Red seemed to realize the desperation in his voice before the blonde stood up and flashed away. Rias let out a small squeak when he suddenly appeared in front of her. What's wrong? What are you talking about? Catching her breath, she looked up at him. Why are you over here? Because I could feel your anger. You're angry. I'm not angry.
Rias, I can literally feel your anger from here. He stepped off the edge of the boundary between the stage and the seats so he could stand in front of her. Please tell me what's wrong.
I told you nothing's wrong. She looked around at the mouths surrounding her. Why aren't you focusing on the match? Because I want to know what has you upset, Naruto continued. Is it because of the fight? Satan Red is a lot stronger than I. Oh, they took off their masks. Your brother is a lot stronger than I expected. It's tough, but I swear I can turn this around. Another ping of anger, followed by a wave of frustration he couldn't quite put into words. Rias, you know, Satan Yellow quietly whispered by their side. One day you'll know and understand each other so well you can share emotions and thoughts with just a glance. But until then, you need to voice your feelings. Rias took a deep breath before looking up at him. I am angry, but not at you. This whole test has been about proving that we can carry the Gremory house once I inherit it. It's been about showing that we have the skills necessary to succeed it. We're supposed to be showing everyone that you're worthy to be my partner, but. Rias. But why the hell should that matter? Rias jumped up and stomped her foot in frustration. I hate this. I hate having to take tests and jump through hoops to validate ourselves. I hate listening to people say you need to prove yourself worthy to be the man I love, and I hate that anyone would dare suggest I made the wrong choice falling in love with you. You're the man that helped me fight for my freedom. You're the one that stood by me as we faced down some of the worst threats we could ever face. You're the one I've decided to pledge my life to. So we shouldn't have to prove anything to anyone.
Rias. And now as we go further into this, you've started to think you have something to prove. Like this will only work out if you can prove to all the nobles and pure bloods that you're worthy of courting me, and I know in their eyes you never will be. And I'm scared that if we force you to keep doing this, then you'll end up hating me. You'll keep having to prove yourself, and all I can do is sit by the side and watch. And,
hey! Rias' yelling was quickly halted by Naruto's call. The redhead was left panting for air before she dropped back in her seat. She looked up at him as he shook his head. Do you seriously think I could ever hate you? I am just scared of pushing you away. Rias, I love you. Naruto confessed, you made me fall in love with you and I can't ever escape that feeling. He touched his chest. You fell in love with me despite everything that was wrong with me, and I adore you for that. And I love you enough to be willing to change, struggle, and fight to prove myself to all these people that are watching us. I will do anything and everything I can to prove I'm worthy of you to them. But if I can't, will you still love me? She sniffled, of course I will. If we can't properly succeed the Gremory household, can we still be together? He nervously smiled as he shrugged. Can we live in a house? Either here or in the human world. You, me, maybe a kid or two, and just be happy? Would you be okay with that? She stared up at him in silence as tears ran down her cheeks. She nodded, yes. Then I'll do whatever it takes to prove to them whatever it is they think I need to prove. As long as I know you'll still love me and be here with me, then it doesn't matter what we face. We'll handle it. Rias looked at him and smiled before rubbing her eyes. Now red and puffy, she giggled up at him. That speech would have seemed a lot cooler if you were your older self again. Hey, I gotta make do. That was the first time you said you loved me. It was the first time you said you loved me too, but I think I've known for a while. Me too. Hey. Naruto offered his hand. Your brother's destruction is a pain in the ass. You mind helping me deal with it? Huh? But my destruction isn't nearly as strong as Onisama's. Don't worry, he grinned, I'll make up the difference, but I think your power's what I need to make him quake in his boots. Rias looked around at the Maus and saw them nod their agreement. Seraphol was actually tearing up and blowing her nose before cheering for them to win. With that, the young Gremory stood up and placed her hand in his. They flashed over to the center of the Colosseum and Naruto had to catch her before she stumbled from the rush of the movement. As she caught her balance, he looked over at Satan Red. Hey Red, it's about time we end the fight, don't you think? Oh, yeah, so here's the deal. Naruto squeezed Ria's hand. Our next attack will end this fight. Either we win or you do. But this next shot ends it, okay? Interesting proposal. Red nodded. I agree, Rias. Just focus some of your destruction, okay? Naruto came up from behind her and slid his arms along hers until their hands were overlapped. While you do, I'll be adding in some of my chakra. We did this before, didn't we? She whispered, against Kokebeel? That's right, but this time it's just you and me, and I think it's gonna be bigger too. Than last time? Maybe. Let's find out. Small orbs of chakra started to gather together and coalesce into a single point between their hands. It grew into a small black orb that slowly grew bigger and bigger between their hands. While Naruto formed his attack, Rias focused in and started to form her destruction. She watched as a small, heavy center of red and black energy formed in the center of the black orb. Every time she formed her demonic power, she felt like she might overload it and had to balance it out against his jutsu. Their attack. Their combo. When they finished, a heavy black ball with a compact red center had formed in their hands. They slowly raised it towards Satan Red and took a deep breath. Grand Destruction, Biju Bomb. She started and he finished. They pressed their palms out and watched as their attack sailed through the air and straight towards Satan Red. The masked hero chambered his fists and prepared to intercept the attack before it hit him. A chakra hand stretched out and caught their attack, swerving it out to the side and letting it come in towards his flank. Oh my god, it erupted before he could finish. Devil, congratulations. You passed. Seraphol pulled the string and popped the streamers she had prepared for the occasion. She jumped in place and cheered. I knew you crazy kids could do it. Thank you, Seraphol-sama. Rias bowed graciously. A slightly younger Naruto was by her side, grinning and scratching his head at the praise. I want to thank all of you. We appreciate the time you took out of your schedules to help us through this. I liked it. Falbium said, it was a good opportunity to take a break and not get hounded by any of my peerage while I did so. Ijuka hummed, and I got to see some very impressive techniques displayed today. I expect you to take some time and let me test those abilities further for myself, Naruto-kun. Why yes sir, I'll get right on that. So you passed your trials and won the match. Sirzek stated, it was very well done. Although I think the fight may go unresolved for now. Satan Red certainly thought your last attack was impressive, but he wasn't actually beaten. You might have to face him in battle again one day if the challenge is ever dropped. I mean, he ran away from our attack. I think that pretty much puts an end to the fight no matter how you look at it. Ah, but you didn't win. Ah, but he ran away. Well, he didn't have much choice. If he completely and totally destroyed your attack after such a heartfelt speech and loving moment between two young kids, how could he live with himself? It was just easier to dodge and let you stumble into the victory. You don't think it's because he wanted to avoid that? All eyes turned to a corner of the Colosseum. Or more accurately, the massive cone-shaped furrow in the stands and ground that carried on for hundreds of meters into the surrounding territory where their attack exploded. Oh, if you think an attack like that was enough to stop Satan Red. A quick, powerful chop to his neck silenced Searsex and made him drop like a limp doll. Graphia lowered her hand and coughed into her fist to ease the tension in their air before speaking. You both performed wonderfully. Naruto-sama, you do still have rough patches and gaps in your knowledge, but that's to be expected without proper training. You'll need to work hard to prove you're ready to accept the mantle as a partner of the next Gremory head. You got it. And Rias-sama. Rias, she abandoned her formal tone and looked at her little sister with a warm expression. I'm so proud to see how far you've come. Rias blushed. Thank you, Oni-sama. And with that, their test at the Ruin of Connection had ended. Devil. It was late when they arrived back. Well past midnight, with no one still awake to greet them. The two young devils made their way up the elevator in silence as each floor dinged away with their climb. Naruto looked over at Rias and saw her nervously look down again before he could notice her gaze. She had been like this since they left the ruins and finished the test. They had shared a few words together since then, but things had been rather awkward. Was it because they finally confessed? Was it because they did it in front of other people? He wasn't sure, but Naruto was worried about asking the question when it might upset her again. The elevator arrived and they walked through the halls before he spoke up. Do you think the others are still up? I didn't know if they would have waited for us to come back this late, right? He sighed and shook his head. Did he mess something up or not realizing something again? Before he could take another step, he felt a tug on his wrist that stopped him from walking. He looked back as Rias opened another door and motioned them in here. She pulled him in and he followed as they arrived in one of the empty rooms on their floor. There really were too many rooms for just them and any of the peerage that decided to stay the night. Rias, what are? She pushed into his chest and they stumbled back until they hit the bed. Naruto landed on his back as Rias laid on his chest. Slowly she lifted her body up until she sat over him while straddling his hips. Her hands clenched the end of her blouse and slowly pulled it over her head until she was left in nothing but a black brassiere. He stared up in odd silence at the beauty sitting over him. Are you sure? I've waited so long. We keep trying over and over but we're always being interrupted. But now, her hands bunched up the end of his shirt and snuck in to roam over his chest. Now might be our best chance to do this. What about protection? Rias reached behind her and pulled out a condom from her pocket. When she saw his surprised expression she blushed. I've kept one around in case the opportunity ever showed itself. But now I realize we need to create the opportunity, not wait for it to come. Are you sure? I love you. She whispered softly, and I want us to be together. Naruto sat back up, causing Rias to shuffle back so she wasn't knocked off the bed. He pulled the shirt off over his head and tossed it aside until he was left in only his pants. His arms reached out and circled around her back, pulling her in so her chest pressed against his. She panted softly against his face as he smiled. I love you too. She leaned in and took his lips in a deep kiss, forcing her tongue into his mouth in hungry desire. Naruto pulled her in close, squeezing her back tightly before his hands drifted down over her butt. Rias moaned and gasped into his mouth as his hands rubbed and squeezed her backside before pulling off her skirt. Rias pulled back and kissed his chin before gently pecking his neck and chest. As she reveled in his groaning and moans, her hands slipped down to his pants and started to unzip them. His hips shimmied around and forced his pants down his legs. As she was leaning over, Naruto's hands found her bra and started to unhook it. He struggled with it for a few moments before the wonderful sound of two hooks slipping undone reached his ears and her bra slipped between them. Naruto grabbed her shoulders and pushed her back so he could get a look at her. Ria's skin was flushed and heaving, her breasts shaking as the excitement of what was going to happen was already causing her breath to become heavy. Her nipples were perked and erect, aroused by the actions they had taken already as she prepared for what was ahead. Naruto's hands latched onto one of her mounds. His fingers dug into the soft, squishy flesh of her breast as he realized just how large it was. As he did, Rias let out more moans and gasps of delight as her body was teased. Her nipple found its ways to his fingers and he gently squeezed and rubbed it, eliciting more cries of joy from her as he did. Naruto, Rias panted, that feels so good. Your hands are so big and they feel so rough. I always love it when you touch me. I love touching you, he said against her collarbone as he leaned in and kissed her neck. Her weakness revealed itself again as she gasped, feeling him kiss her there. Just how soft you are. Just how warm you are. Seeing you react to my touch. Nothing makes me happier. I've wanted this for so long. She moaned, I've dreamt about what it would be like. To feel you against me. To feel you in me. I've longed for it. I've touched myself to the thought of you. He admitted, I couldn't stop imagining what it would be like. I'm ashamed to admit it was all I thought about after our previous close calls. Me too. She giggled between her moans, and I don't want to waste another second. Her hand dug into his boxers and took grip of his hardness. She felt the heat and firmness of his erection and marveled at it before moving her hand. Rias felt Naruto pull back from her neck and pant as she jerked him off. Do you like that? Yes. Oh fuck yes. How much? It feels so damn good. You made me come before. Rias smirked as she moved her hand faster. Should I do the same for you? Give you the satisfaction? No. Naruto grabbed her wrist before it could do anymore and looked up at her. I don't want to waste another second. I want you. All I want is to be inside you. She gulped. I want that too. Rias picked up the condom and tore a portion of the wrapping off with her teeth. She pulled out the plastic before holding it up. Here. Let me put it on for you. Pulling down his pants, she freed his erection into the cool air. Ria's blush intensified as she looked down at it before she pulled the condom out and started working it over his cock. Her fingers brushed along his shaft before reaching his base. It snapped into place. Ow, sorry, are you hurt? No, I'm fine. He groaned, it's just really sensitive. Before she could fret anymore, Naruto's hands settled around her hips and slipped his fingers over the insides of her panties. He dragged them down, letting his fingers drag along her smooth legs until they reached her feet. He tossed her panties aside, noticing the small wet patch they had before settling back on her hips. Are you ready? Are you? She pressed down on his shoulders and forced him back in the bed. As he laid back, Rias shifted around so that she hovered over his wrapped-up phallus. With her hands on his chest to steady herself, she slowly lowered down as she felt his tip press against the opening of her sex. She stopped, the red-haired beauty bracing herself with a deep breath before lowering down further. The tip of his cock breached her pussy and slid into place. Rias let out a pained gasp as she felt him enter her. Naruto reached up and grabbed her waist. Are you okay? I am just not used to this. She muttered, this is a different sensation than a finger or two. She bit her lip before forcing her hips down further, taking in more of his penis until she finally reached his hips. When she did, she let out the breath she had been holding and panted for air. She felt a tight grip on her hips and looked down to see Naruto holding her. With a shaky breath she calmed down and pressed her hands against his. I'll be okay. Does it still hurt? No, I'm alright. It wasn't as if you were really hurting me. It was just uncomfortable to do that for the first time. It felt so different. It feels good, he admitted without hesitation. Realizing what he said, he shook his head. I mean, I know it hurts and sorry. No, keep talking. I need a second to get used to it. Tell me what you feel. I feel you. He rubbed her hips gently. You're warm and tight. I can feel you even through the plastic. He closed his eyes and moaned. It feels even better than I imagined. Hee hee, I'm flattered. Rias took a deep breath before looking down at him. I'm good. Can you move? Yeah. Do you need help? I might. But let me try it first. Rias slowly lifted her hips and brought up along his shaft before going back down. She did this a few more times, slowly, in order to understand the feel of it. Every time their bodies clapped together, Rias gasped in blissful joy. Her breathing was heavy and coming out in hot waves as she felt her body nearly overheat. Naruto wasn't faring much better, drowning and fading in an abyss of pleasure as the goddess above him moved her body. He felt her pussy squeeze his rod so tightly he imagined her sucking out all his energy. As she brought him to the greatest points of pleasure, he desired to do the same for her. His hands slipped off her hips, running along her waist and stomach before finding purchase in her breasts. As his hands clamped down on her mountains, he felt her nipples rub along his palms. She let out a cry of joy when he did, and he then realized that he couldn't see most of her face while her breasts were in the way. How had he never realized they were that big? She looked down at him with a sultry smile as she moved her hips. Find something you like? Yeah. And I'm hoping you like it too. With each squeeze and press he earned another moan from his lover. As she gasped and started to whisper his name, he knew he had to do more to please her. His hands pulled away from her breasts and settled on her back to hold her steady as he lifted himself up. His mouth latched around her nipple. Ah! The redhead yelled as she felt his mouth suckle on her breast and tongue roam over her nipple. Bolts of electricity filled her body from her breasts and her pussy as she rode him. She called out, "Naruto, Naruto, more. That feels so good." Ria's hand came up to the back of his head and held him in place as he sucked her breasts. His tongue flicked up and down along her hardened nipple before sucking on it with no restraint. Her fingers dug into his hair, barely forming words as he continued to pleasure her. Naruto's mouth detached from that breast and came to her other one, giving it the same treatment. And while he sucked on that one, his hand came up to her free breast, squeezing the moist nipple in his hand as he felt her tighten up. "Naruto," Rias called out before dropping forward, forcing him back on the bed as she pressed her chest against his. Her arms tightened around his neck and her hands squeezed into his hair. As she cried his name, she dropped her hips on his cock over and over again. "Naruto, Naruto, Naru, Naruto pulled her in and took her lips in a passionate kiss as she ground her body against his. Their tongues crossed together. Hot breath escaped every time they moved. They were so into it they lost track of their breathing and started going lightheaded. "I'm coming." Rias felt her pressure in her body build up as her lower body hid down harder. "Naruto, I'm coming." "Come on, Rias." His hand gripped her ass tightly and helped her along in her efforts. "Do it." Ah. Ria's body froze and convulsed as her pussy tightened and clenched around his cock. Her body shuddered in ecstasy, gripping his body as tightly as possible as she rode out her climax. She panted and gasped for air, her hips bouncing against his dick a few more times to force out the last of her orgasm before she laid still and rested on his body. Her eyes fluttered shut as she felt the chest she rest on rise and fall every few seconds, until she felt a soft nudge on her shoulder. The weary girl opened her eyes and looked up to see an uncomfortable Naruto ask her to get off. Was she heavy? Was it not good for him? As she rolled off and laid by his side, he reached down and yanked the condom off. It dangled limply in his hand, the obvious signs of its use building up in the ends of it. Both of them looked at the nasty used plastic before Naruto shook his head and chucked it in the bin. That felt so weird at the end. "Are you alright?" She gently squeezed his bicep to get an answer. When he looked down at her, it was with a warm, loving smile and eyes of adoration. Rias felt the same feeling swell up inside her as well as he leaned down and kissed her. They shared it for a few moments before separating. "I don't think we have to worry about the universe interfering anymore. I'd say knock on wood, but I think you're calming down already." "Oh haha." The two stayed together, wrapped in each other's arms and laughing at every little thing while sparing a kiss when they could. The moment was just so perfect and they were so happy to have experienced it that nothing could bring them down. In more ways than one. Rias flinched. "Oh, spoke too soon." Naruto looked down. "Sorry, I think I need a second to calm down." "Would you? Do you want to go again?" His eyes widened and he stared at her like she had just said the most incomprehensible thing imaginable. Naruto hesitated, waiting for the other shoe to drop and deny him the possibility. "Seriously? I mean, you've been waiting a long time. And I've certainly been thinking about this." Rias blushed, cutely looking up at him as he stared. "I don't mind going again." Yes. So much." Naruto nodded and prepared to go again before stopping. "Oh shit. Do you have another condom?" "No, damn it, it was just the one." "Shit." They stared at each other. "I mean, we could start, and when we get there I could. Let's not make any bad habits. This is a hotel, so there should be something around." On it, Naruto leapt off the bed, unbothered by his current state of undress as he checked every drawer. He found what he was looking for. Yes. Found them. Oh fuck. What? Rias sat up. "What is it?" Naruto gulped and held them up. It was a box with Azazel smiling on the front that said, "Fall in pleasure. Cling to your pleasure and fall into depravity." No, are you sure? No, it says it's super thin. Won't even notice it's on. Made for his and her. The box disintegrated with Ria's power hovering over her palm. Put anything he made inside me and I'll never forgive you. A sweat drop ran down his face before he looked back in the drawer. Different box. Doesn't have his face. See? He tossed the box and Rias caught it in her hands. And in that moment when she let down her guard, Naruto charged to the bed and jumped on her. The two lovers giggled and laughed together as they settled back into bed. Rias looked up at him and gently cupped his cheek. Promise to tell me you love me in the morning. Only if you say it back. Meh, if I feel like it. Then I better make sure you feel it. He dipped down and took her lips as her arms wrapped around him. Devil, devil. There weren't any windows in the room they slept in that let in gentle morning light or soft sounds from the outside to wake them up. The only thing to wake them was the gentle rustling of their bed as they both slowly regained awareness and shifted awake. Ria's eyes carefully peeled open as she yawned and felt the exhaustion of last night start to bleed away. Her seafoam eyes opened softly and she reached out to gently cup his cheek. She ran her fingers over his whiskers and giggled when he shifted under her touch. Hee, his cheeks felt squishy except where the whiskers felt rough. She loved touching them. Her playing around was enough to stir him awake completely as his eyes blearily slid open. He blinked a few times to make sure he was awake and aware enough to realize his girlfriend was stroking his cheek. The softness of her touch and the warmth of her smile was enough to lull him back to sleep. He smiled and closed his eyes. I love you. Did I do enough last night to convince you to say it? Yes, you did, she giggled. I love you too. Rias leaned in and kissed him on the nose before sliding into his embrace. Naruto's arms encircled her body and pulled her in as they settled quietly in their morning lull. Last night was fantastic. Yeah, that was worth the wait. Naruto agreed. We should probably think about making that a regular thing. I tried it once. I think I'm good. She looked up at his surprised face as she smirked. I'm kidding, of course. We're definitely trying that again when we get the chance. But maybe not as frantic as last time. Rias shifted and grumbled. My waist hurt last night after we were done. Naruto looked sheepish. Sorry about that. I kinda went a little gun-ho while we were getting into it. It's just... The blonde paused and struggled to find the words before shrugging. It felt really good. It really did. Rias wholeheartedly agreed, but if we're going to be making it a regular thing, I think we should decide how we're going to sleep after this. Naruto looked between them. What's wrong with this? How else would we sleep? Ever heard of a big and little spoon? Yes, Naruto immediately responded and then reeled back his excitement. I mean, I'm sure I've heard it once or twice. Nice retreat there. Rias laughed at his little slip-up before she shifted around so her back was pressed to his chest. This is the first choice. You're big spoon and I'll be little. What's the benefits? Benefits? Naruto slipped in and spooned up against Ria's back. As he settled in, he smiled. Oh yeah, this is pretty great. For one, you wear a great shampoo and I love the idea of waking up to it every morning. He leaned into her crimson curtain of hair and basked in the comforting, pleasant smell of berries and soap. He loved the sound of Rias giggle before he continued. You're also incredibly cozy, and I also get a feel of these babies. Hey. Rias squeaked as his hands settled over her breasts and gently started to squeeze them. She flinched and felt her cheeks start to warm up as his palms rubbed her nipples and pressed the areolas down. The Gremory heiress frowned before finally speaking up. Well, this is certainly nice, but I see two problems with. Stop it. Sorry. He stopped squeezing but didn't remove his hands from her breasts. She rolled her eyes before continuing. There are two problems with this situated like this. Firstly, you might choke on my hair in the night and die. I can live with that. Cute. And second, I can't wake up every morning feeling that poking my butt. Feeling what? Poke your... Oh. Naruto looked between them at his raised shame, tch, damn biological reaction. Sure, if that's what you want to call it, you horny bitch. Rias laughed at his indignant expression before she twisted around. Now you turn over. Naruto complied and showed her his back as she pressed in and circled her arms around his chest. She sighed contently as she reveled in his warmth like a big security blanket. Oh, I love this. Yeah, I can definitely see the appeal. Naruto shuddered as he felt Ria's massive, pillowy breasts press and conform to his back. He committed the sensation to memory. I can feel the perk of it too. Or in this case, 2 perks. Seriously, stop it. She smacked his back to make him stop. After a moment her hands started to rub and feel the muscles of his chest and abs. Then her hands started to drift further down before they both settled on the stiff, hot member between his legs. Naruto looked back at her as she gave him a sultry look. If we're settled on big and little spoon, would you like me to wake you up like this every now and then? Sure, I'd like that, but you know if you did, I might be ready for something else, right? Rias tossed their blanket off their bodies and climbed up on him. She ended up straddling his hips and sitting on top of him as her large breasts dangled in front of his face. Her face flushed and she gave him a heated look. I'm more than ready to go again. Then you're the big spoon. Rias leaned down and laid on top of him as they started to kiss. Rias' hands rested on his shoulders while Naruto's started to squeeze her ass. They continued on for a full minute and prepared to go forward. Before one of their phones started to vibrate on the counter by their bed. They separated inside, the outside world. Rias laid on Naruto's chest like a pillow as she reached out and grabbed her phone. When she looked at the screen her face took on a deep grimace that ruined her wonderful morning mood. Damn it. What? Azazel. She said in a heavy, dissatisfied tone before looking at her whiskered lover. Says it's an emergency. He's calling everyone in the peerage together to meet at the hotel as soon as possible. Any idea what for? I'm sure I do not know. Shit. The 2 young lovers laid quietly together. Rias running her hand on his chest as his hand got tangled in her hair. I guess we should probably get up. Yeah. I hope they have soap and shampoo here. Do you think we should ask Azazel to clean up the room or just burn it? He said it as a joke, but Rias still looked disappointed that their morning plans had changed. He patted her head. You should go take your shower first while I pick up the clothes. Rias nodded solemnly and traced her finger on his chest. Her eyes suddenly widened before a cheeky, mischievous smile grabbed his attention. You know 1 shower for 2 people means half the time, right? Naruto smiled back. Oh, well we should be using our time efficiently. Glad you see it my way. Devil, they're here. Xenovia notified everyone as she spotted Naruto and Rias making their way through the lobby to join them. I guess they didn't stay in the underworld overnight. Sorry we're late. Our showers. Oh, our showers took longer than expected. Rias apologized as she and Naruto joined the rest of the group. The red-haired king looked around at the gathered group. Is this everyone? We're just missing Roswise-san. Issei looked over. For some reason Azazel-sensei called us in and immediately told us to sit down. He seemed way more serious and focused than, well, ever before. Does anyone know what this is about? Sorry. Roswise came running in through the front door of the hotel. I got a little held up. The other devils and angel were surprised when the former Valkyrie walked in, and instead of the Valkyrie armor or business suit they had seen her usually wear, she instead opted for a loose tracksuit that completely covered her body. So what did Azazel-sensei call us here for? What? Roswise noticed that everyone was staring at her. She looked down and hugged herself tightly. I don't really have a lot of liquid income at the moment. If I have to make a choice between clothes and food, then I'm obviously going to choose food. We're not judging you, Roswise-san. Yeah, you somehow make a tracksuit look good. She's right. It's supposed to look baggy, yet I can still see the lines of your waist, hips, and breasts. It's actually pretty erotic. Hey, is everyone here now? Azazel walked out and looked around. Okay, I think everyone is here and Roswise is having a panic attack, so everything's normal. Follow me. The orc followed after the serious and stern Governor General as they made their way down the hall. As they walked, Akeno waited back and started walking beside Naruto. The short-haired queen whispered by his side, so how did it go? Huh? Naruto blinked and looked at everyone ahead of them before whispering back, it was fine. Sirzex and the other Mao met us at the weird ritual site and put us through a few tests. And what else? Naruto looked at Rias' hair and then nodded. I think I got what you were talking about before. What Rias was worrying about and what I couldn't see. You sure? Akeno asked, but in a teasing, mocking tone as she showed him a wry grin. You're pretty dumb, so you might just get the idea that you know what you're talking about. Shut up. Naruto grumbled and rolled his eyes at the devil, fallen angel hybrid. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. I know we worked things out. Akano stared at him blankly before shrugging. Okay, I'll believe you. Good job. And what about after? After? Nothing happened after. That's the story you want to go with? Alright, I guess I'll just have to ask Rias why you're both wearing the same clothes as yesterday. Naruto panicked and looked over his old wrinkled clothes as Akano giggled to herself. They arrived at the elevator and Azazel opened the doors before signaling them all in. Come on, get in and squeeze together. We don't have any time to waste. Azazel, what's happening? Get in, we have to hurry. Once everyone had found their spot, Azazel pressed the button and the elevator started to shift downwards. As they made their way to the deep basement, Azazel leaned back against the wall and let out a tired sigh. I'm sorry to call you all on short notice, but this was important. What is this about? It's better if you just see for yourself, Azazel said in a somber, melancholy voice. His pensiveness was alerting and put everyone a little on edge. I can't believe this happened. What, did Oni-sama contact you about something? Azazel stayed quiet, leaving the question hanging in the air as he had no way to answer it. As the elevator started to slow down, he looked over his younger compatriots and shook his head. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to prepare all of you for what is about to happen. Sensei, what's going to happen? I just want you all to know, whatever happens next. He looked at the door and they all watched it as well as it opened. We'll face it together. The door opened to pitch black darkness that quickly turned into blinding, overwhelming light. Celebrate good times, come on. The lights started flashing a dozen different colors and pyrotechnics started flying up in a dazzling display. In the illumination, dozens of full bands appeared on the ground floor in dazzling, sparkling clothing. And flanking on either side of the room were Matabi and Isobu with a giant banner that said congratulations. There's a party going in right here, a celebration to last throughout the years. So bring your good times, and your laughter too, we gonna celebrate your party with you. Come on now. The orc members stared at the fantastical concert and dancing Biju in silent confusion. They all looked together as one over at Azazel in time to see the fallen angel disco dancing and having the time of his life. The dour and sober expression he had on moments before replaced with joyous elation. It's time to come together, it's up to you, what's your pleasure? Everyone around the world, come. Rias slammed her hand on the button and the doors shut instantly. Without saying a word she turned her head slowly towards Azazel, her eyes peering through the veil of her hair like a demented spirit haunting its prey. The fallen angel giggled. Pretty good, right? No, Naruto immediately picked Rias up and stopped her as she clawed at the air in front of Azazel like a ravenous animal. It's tempting, but I still think he should be kept alive. As his girlfriend continued to silently thrash around to desperately satiate her bloodlust, Naruto glared at Azazel. How'd you know? Give me a little credit. I know all about the dirty little secrets you kids did last night. Don't think you can hide. I am sorry. Asia exclaimed in mortification with a red face as she lowered her head. Why, yesterday I saw a video that Kiryu-san introduced me to and I got interested. So last night I went into Issei-san's room and asked him if he wanted to fondle my breasts. We did for almost an hour. And then I had to run out of the room because I felt funny and I needed to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Asia. Issei confessed with shame and tears in his eyes. Squeezing your boobs made me happier than I could possibly explain. I got so horny I was just about to ask if we could go further before you ran out the room. After you left I spent the rest of the night masturbating, seriously. All night. I have friction burns, it fucking hurts and I'm ashamed. No, it's my dirty secret we're talking about, Irina exclaimed. I also saw one of the videos Kiryu-san suggested and was tempted to almost do things. They were so hot and enticing that I almost fell at least 6 times. I'm an angel and blessed with the honor of being Michael-sama's ace. So I should know better and yet I was still almost tempted. I'm ashamed. Don't look at me. I'm not sure if it's really a dirty secret, but I think this concerns me. I also watched a video and saw a man and woman do quite a few voracious things with each other. Zenobia explained. In the video the two started engaging in anal sex and start getting a lot louder. So I decided to experiment with a finger and I did not hate it. I'm a disgrace. Rosswise dropped to her knees and whimpered. I'm supposed to be a productive member of society now that I'm a teacher and behave accordingly. But I was bored, lonely, and sad being so far away from my home by myself for the first time, so I didn't know what to do last night. so I turned on my phone's vibration up to the fullest and used it to T2. I'm sorry. Rias and I had sex. All eyes widened and looked at Naruto and Rias in shock, except for Azazel, who was laughing to himself, and Akano, who pawned her face. Naruto. The blonde raised his hands defensively against Rias' embarrassed glare. Sorry. But I thought it better to just spill the beans before someone else revealed some terrible, embarrassing secret that they really shouldn't be saying out loud. Now that it's out in the open, we can. A group of men said I looked pretty in my skirt, and I didn't even bother correcting them. Damn it, Gasper. Naruto roared at the sheepish Dampier, who cowered in the corner. What the fuck was the point in me revealing that deep, personal secret if you were just gonna spill anyway? I am sorry, senpai. But I felt pretty, and I should be allowed to feel pretty every now and then. The silence that settled over the elevator was so uncomfortable that no one could say anything after the onslaught of embarrassing secrets and truths that were revealed. Except for, of course, he. I love it here. Azazel laughed and wiped a tear out of his eye. I try to embarrass just two of you, and you all take the time to reveal your most damning secrets. Well, I can't let you go and do that by yourselves. So lately I've been styling the bush into words, so when I slap the sausage it looks like sound effects. Azazel. Rias squawked, her hands flicking around as if she was desperately trying to grab hold of the air or make sense of the madness. How did you know? Oh, there were a few employees working the graveyard shift that saw you come back, and there was a camera in the hall. I saw you drag him in with that big, blank expression on his face. Rias fumed and Naruto grumbled into his hand while Azazel grinned. So I just knew that it was time for you two to break the bed. Did you break the bed, by the way? Because if you did, I need to send someone up to either fix everything or burn it all down before replacing it. So what? Rias stuttered. You saw us leave, knew what was happening, and came down here, prepared. Her hand flopped uselessly at the elevator door. All of that before we woke up? Oh hell no, I had all of this prepared and set up weeks beforehand. It was ready in case any of you kids decided to do the deed. The fallen angel Governor General wriggled his eyebrows for emphasis before shrugging. Honestly, it took a lot of time to get this all prepared. Hours of choreography practice and pyrotechnic preparation. Plus, since discovering the Biju, there was no way I couldn't invite giant ditzy animals to come dance at the party when the cherry popped. The hardest part was deciding if I should personalize it for whoever got laid first. Their teacher gave a complicated expression as he frowned. But it was just impossible to figure out which one of you hormone-addled sex-crazed brats would do it first. You know? The horny young couple raring to tear into each other? Will it be the up-and-coming Opie Dragon, using his prodigious raging libido to convince someone into bed? Or will one of the other kids, most likely Xenovia, blunder their way into bed? I was on the board. The blue-haired knight pointed at herself before puffing out her chest. Glad to know I'm being considered. But it's done now. Let's just celebrate. Azazel opened the doors again and walked out as the song reached its end and an explosion of lights released with the crescendo. I got several dozen bands paid out for the next hour. Any song suggestions? Preferences? Come on kids, let's have fun, what do you say? He looked back in time to see the doors close and the elevator leave without him. Hey Azazel, this was fun. I've never danced before. I want to do it again. Matabi excitedly informed as her two tails swayed behind her. What were Naruto and Kitten doing down here? Oh, it's not important. And I'm glad you had fun, kid. The fallen angel walked up to the railing and looked over the massive band he paid to perform. Hey, do you guys take requests? You're paying this, so we're good for the next hour. Then start warming up. Azazel cracked his neck and grinned. I'm feeling nostalgic. Devil. The orc were carried up multiple levels together in the elevator in silence until they reached their desired floor. They walked out and entered the recreational room exclusive to them and settled back wherever they were comfortable. The awkwardness from the experience in the elevator was still painfully fresh, but most of their attention were on two people in particular. The redhead hiding her face in her hands and the blonde leaning so far back his head was hanging off the back of the couch. Akano strolled over to their couch and stood by its side as she watched her fellow seniors flounder. Looking around the room, the short-haired queen surveyed everyone's expressions and feelings concerning what had happened. Out of everyone in the club and peerage, the only ones that didn't reveal something were herself, Yuto, and Kaneko. The knight was trying not to pay any heed to the overwhelming tension that settled around the room. And Kaneko. Poor thing looked like she just realized she had lost a battle she hadn't even been prepared for. She sighed, okay, I'll say it. I think we'll be able to ease tensions if we just take some time to talk about what was said. What was it like? Issei immediately asked as he slid to Naruto's side and shook his older friend's shoulders. Tell me what it was like. Get off me, you freak. I'm not gonna tell you anything about what it was like. I don't need you to describe any details. Just tell me if it was great, if it was worth it. You're my first friend who has finally crossed that threshold, and I need to know how great it was. As someone fighting way out of their league, what was it like? What do you mean way out of my league? Naruto indignantly snarled before looking at Rias. He looked her over once before frowning. Okay, fine, but you're one to talk, Issei. I know, I'm batting way out of my league too. You're my inspiration. Oh, fuck off. Rias watched her, pawns, argue with each other before turning around. She let out a yelp of surprise when she realized that several of the girls were now flanking her side with questioning, interested looks on their faces. Bucko does look more womanly now, which is pretty hard considering how pretty she was before. She's practically glowing. Asia whispered meekly, Bucko-san. What was it like? Did it hurt? Well, not really, it was just a bit uncomfortable, but that might be because I didn't have my... Rias looked flustered while under her younger friend's passionate gazes before murmuring, listen Asia. It didn't hurt for me, but I'm sure it's going to be unpleasant when you have your turn. Oh, I lost mine too. Xenovia informed. Fighting as hard as possible for years puts a lot of strain on the body. But I guess I won't have to worry when I finally get my chance. So how did you deal with cleanup? Did it require you going to the bathroom too? We used protection. You did? The blunt knight tilted her head. But it should usually take some time for devils to conceive a child even if they try. So why? I am not sure how we deal with catching anything yet, okay. Ooh. The two young devils blushed and hid their faces in embarrassment as a wave of realization and agreement went over their friends. I see we're all reeling from the horror of last night. Did you all have the misfortune of finding out too? Did they at least give you any warning, or did you have to panic and escape like I did? Where the hell have you been all day? Down in the deepest recess of our consciousness with Isobu and Matabi. I had to spend all my time down there waiting for things to ease up. I would have just fallen asleep in the first level, but it's like hearing an argument through a wall. All the yelling and name-calling and grunting. Just unsettling. Kurama, please shut the fuck up. And then this morning when you woke up I thought I could finally just go back to normal. But just as I was about to return I realized you two were going in the shower and doing the same thing. Just wetter and grosser and... Enough. Rias finally reached her breaking point and jumped out of her chair. Her face was flushed red, but she still commanded the attention of the room as she looked around. No more questions, no more inquires. No more revealing intimidate details about what happened. The king looked around at her friends and followers with a shake of her head. This was a very personal, very important moment, and I'm not going to broadcast it right now. So no more talking about it, understood? The elevator door dinged with its arrival. Her eyes hardened, except for right now. She marched down the hallway and faced the door as it opened up. As it did the moment she saw Azazel she dug in. Look here, you stupid son of a bitch. I don't care if you're our teacher, our boss, our mentor, or whatever you're playing at being today. I will not tolerate any more teasing at our detriment. If you get involved with our sex life any further from this point on I will end you. Do you hear me? Wah. Rias blinked and stared at Azazel's unchanged face as a soft whimpering came out. She looked down and finally realized that between her and the fallen angel was a young lady. A young blonde, well-dressed noble lady she instantly recognized with her distinct drill-like spirals in her hair. It was Revel Phoenix, younger sister to Riser Phoenix, and she was tearing up in fear after Rias released her tirade in her direction without even noticing her. Rias felt immensely guilty as she watched the girl's expression shift to panic as Azazel shook his head. For shame, Rias, for shame. Now why don't you calm her down and listen to what she has to say? I was in the middle of teaching Isobu how to spin on his shell to music, and I can't surrender that opportunity. Revel walked out, shaking like a leaf as Rias covered her own face in shame. And down the hallway her peerage watched with mixed emotions. You know, Akeno said towards Naruto, Rias had a lot more grace and tact before meeting you. She's certainly more expressive and honest with herself, but you have definitely made her stupider. Sorry for making her stupider, devil. Hello, everyone. I'm meeting some of you for the first time and others I'm meeting again. The young noble grabbed her skirt and gave a polite curtsy to the surrounding group. My name is Revel Phoenix, and I've come here today looking for your assistance. Wait, we know this girl, don't we? Naruto whispered under his breath. When did we? We met her during the raiding game with Riser Phoenix. She's his younger sister and acted as a bishop during the match. Yuto answered under his breath to not draw attention away from the discussion. The handsome blonde then added, she also asked that you hand over the Phoenix tears you stole and you denied her request. Oh yeah, I remember now. Naruto nodded before he grimaced. Didn't Issei say he wanted to work out some of the kinks in that clothes ripping technique on her? Yes, that he did. So you'd think he'd be the person she's most wary of being around. Issei smiled down at the young blonde. Hey Revel, would you like a tour of this place? The hotel is pretty big and there's a lot to do. I would like that very much, Issei-sama. The young noble lady agreed. And as the perverted pawn smiled in agreement, her cheeks started to take on some redness and she couldn't bring herself to match his gaze. TT, thank you for taking some time to show me around. No problem. Happy to help. Is it me or is she weirdly okay with the guy that wanted to strip her down in a broadcasted fight? Apparently Issei-kun has been interacting with her a few times when they're in the underworld. He talked with her a lot at the banquet we had at the end of summer training, and she's been visiting the set of Opie Dragon in order to get an understanding of producing and handling assets for a family. She's taken quite the shine to him. But, Issei, I guess KFC girl likes it freaky. Kaneko added to their side. We're happy to accommodate you if you'd like to stay, Revel-san. Rias graciously offered to the younger noble lady. I greatly appreciate the offer, Rias-sama. However, I didn't come here to visit your new residence. Revel shuffled in her seat nervously. The truth is that I came here today to ask a favor of you and your peerage. But I'm hesitant to actually ask you, because I'm sure you'll most likely decline. Rias sat silently but gave a small nod. I think I know what this is about, but if you need our help then you have to ask us. Revel looked down at her lap and clenched her fists in her dress. She looked up at the crimson-haired devil and then between the members of the peerage she remembered from the match. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath before taking the plunge. Please help my Oni-sama recover from his trauma. Are you serious? The more senior members of the peerage reeled back in shock except for Rias and Akeno, while the new members looked confused by their reaction. Irina looked around in confusion. What's wrong? Who exactly is her brother? Riser Phoenix, a pure-blooded devil of the Phoenix House who I was engaged to some months ago. Rias calmly informed the new members of their group. I had some chagrin with the arranged marriage and decided to challenge him to a raiding game in order to cancel it. We won and our marriage was called off. Our family accepted the terms of the raiding game and Oni-sama's arranged marriage was terminated. However, he hasn't been taking it very well. I thought so, Rias said. I haven't noticed Riser at any other events or parties since our raiding game. He's been absent for months. He hasn't left our home or interacted with anyone else other than his peerage and our family. It's gotten to a point where we can't just leave him and hope he gets better soon. Revel paused, so that's why I came here. Oh no way. Revel flinched as Naruto exclaimed and broke the tension in the room. The whiskered blonde fumed with anger, stepping forward and causing the younger Phoenix to flinch back in fright. You can't seriously be asking us to help that giant squawking dildo after all the shit he put us through. I know you all might still harbor some resentment towards Oni-sama, but... Yeah, we still resent him. Kaneko muttered with a frown, her face scrunched up and her temper bristling as she remembered the boastful, prideful noble they faced in their first raiding game. He was going to marry Bucko and treat her like a trophy before probably trying to knock her up. That tends to leave a bad impression. Why yes, I understand, after all the crap he was going to do, we can't seriously be asked to help him. I'll be willing to help. Rias, Naruto and the others looked at the crimson-haired heiress in shock as she casually, offhandedly accepted the request while the others were outraged. The blonde boy looked at his girlfriend in disbelief. We're seriously gonna help that asshole, after all the crap he did? I know he hurt you very personally and dearly, Naruto. You must have suffered a very terrible injustice when he almost married me in our arranged engagement." Naruto blinked and realized what she meant as he sighed and shook his head. Rias smiled and looked towards her peerage. "It's okay everyone. I'm not exactly jumping at the chance to forgive Riser for the headache he caused us, but we've all moved past it. The matter has been settled and I'm no longer arranged to marry him. With that finished, there's no longer a reason for me to be outraged or hold a grudge. We've moved past it and there's no need to let Riser suffer just because I want to be petty." "That's right, Rias-sama." Revel emphatically agreed with the Gremory heiress logic as she nodded. "You don't need to worry about Oni-sama anymore because you've already moved on and done the deed with someone else." The young Phoenix girl murmured with a red face. "So I'm sure you're already a grown woman who doesn't need to worry about the silly past." "Right," Rias whispered with flushed cheeks before coughing into her hand and clearing her throat. "Anyway, I'm willing to help Riser return to normality if you really need our help." She stood up and looked at Naruto. "So don't worry about anything, okay?" Naruto grimaced and looked aside. Still a lot to ask to treat everything that happened like water under the bridge. "Oh," Akano gave a mocking, joyous laugh as she chided Naruto with a sly smile. "Are you still harboring feelings of resentment? Weren't you the one who said we should offer a hand and forgive others in order to end the cycle of hatred?" Naruto's eyebrow twitched before he gave a strained smirk. "Weren't you the one who immediately denied that idea and proceeded to devolve into a sad, melodramatic monologue during your little pity party? Well, this is your chance to practice what you preach and prove me wrong." The whiskered blonde scowled before shrugging. "Fine, whatever. I doubt I'm even needed to help that cock-a-doodle dick recover from whatever's messing with him." Actually, Revel hesitated and looked up at her fellow blonde. "We need your help most of all, Naruto-san. As far as I can tell, most of Oni-sama's trauma seems to stem from his interaction with you." "Oh, that makes sense." "No it fucking doesn't," Naruto indignantly roared at his friend's snide remark before turning to Revel. "Why the hell am I the source of his problems?" Well, he was really looking forward to marrying Rias-sama. She meekly answered while her hands shuffled in her lap. "Also he has great pride in being a pure-blooded devil, so I don't think he was expecting to lose to a resurrected devil." She then looked up at Naruto directly, "And also, well, you scared him pretty badly in your fight. What has he never lost before? The big baby?" "Naruto," Rias stoically looked up at her lover. "You punched him in the mouth and your hand came out the other side of his neck. And then you proceeded to attack him relentlessly with ferocity I doubt he had ever seen before." Naruto looked around at all the gaze she was getting before holding up his finger. "In my defense, that was the first time I had used Sage Mode in a while, and also I was in a lot of pain from the burns, and I was pissed off, and..." He stopped and shrugged. "Okay, I think I see where the problem is coming from. Oni-sama freaks out whenever he hears about your exploits and Naruto-san's name comes up. And also when the character that looks like him shows up in Oppai Dragon. Oh, or when he sees golden hair. Revel-san, you have blonde hair. I have to wear a hat when I interact with him, as does anyone in our family with the same hair." "He has blonde hair." Revel looked down sadly. He did. Past tense. Devil. In a massive room shrouded in darkness, a sullen, depressed figure sat in the middle of the floor with a flickering screen in front of him. Hiding underneath his blanket, the formerly haughty, prideful young man laughed to himself. "I never got the chance to watch TV much before the rating game. There's so much good stuff. I'm finally getting through my queue." His hand reached up and rubbed along the clean, flawless dome that was his dome. Where once he had a majestic head of golden locks that perfectly suited his handsome, rugged features, now he was shaven and completely bald. Finally rid of those cursed yellow hairs that reminded him of the monster that had thoroughly destroyed him in battle. Oh, and his eyebrows too. They were yellow and they gave him nightmares, so they had to go. The pitiful form of the Phoenix Man was the only figure in the light of the television as he sat to himself and giggled. What was I thinking going out there when there's so much to enjoy in here? No fighting. No losing. No being faced with awful whiskered monsters that steal your fiancé. Just safe. It's so safe. What do you eat? Oh, I have my peerage or Revel bring me meals when I'm hungry. Well, that's useful. Yeah, they really keep me sane. I don't know what would happen if I didn't have them. Probably something bad. I'd make the safe bet that you'd probably break. Most likely. Wanna test the theory? Not really, I'm fine. Riser paused and realized he had been having a conversation with someone who had slipped into the room without him realizing. He slowly looked back and saw, clear as if the sun shined down on him, who it was that had snuck up behind him. The whiskered face stretched into a malicious, vile grin as he leered down at Riser with evil intent. Hey there, you remember me? Devil. Ah. Rias, Revel, and Riser's peerage flinched in shock as the unnerving, blood-curdling scream echoing out of Riser's room. Revel gulped and looked up at the redhead. There had to be a better way of doing this, wasn't there? Rias looked worried but kept her composure as she crossed her arms under her chest. Naruto was pretty peeved at having to agree to this. He said he would do it, but only if he got to handle this himself. Naruto might be a little rough around the edges, but I know he'll do good. Riser's masked, Rook, Isabella, looked to the Gremory woman, and Riser-sama will be staying in your hotel until there's some results? Yes, we'll be taking good care of him. No. The door slammed open as Naruto walked out with Riser's foot in his grasp and the wailing phoenix getting dragged behind him. I don't want this. Not this. I don't want to go outside with anyone, let alone him. Come on, young master, your wonderful little sister said you need to get some exercise, Naruto said with a far too chipper smile and tone in his voice as Riser cried, we're gonna go and have some fun. No, please. Kill me. Just kill me. Oh but Q-Ball, you can't die, remember? Naruto cackled like a villainous hyena. Which means by the end of this we're gonna have one of two results. Either you're going to learn to get over your fear, or your mind is going to break and you'll be reduced to a newborn, vegetative state of which there is no return. Either way, win for me. N-N-N-N-N-N-O. The girls watched the two boys disappear around the corner even as their voices carried back through the hall. Revel and the peerage turned to Rias again. She murmured, he's much nicer than he appears. Devil, come on Riser. You've been holed up in your room too long. You need to exercise and work off some of the rust, Naruto announced proudly. He was dressed in his Gremory tracksuit and watched diligently from the center of the room. Your demonic power is lacking, your skills are dull, and honestly I'm having a hard time taking you seriously after you've shaved all the hair off your body. So we're going to keep doing this for a while so you can acclimate to the outside again. Any questions? Why are there so many of you? Oh, sorry, I guess you haven't really been keeping track of what's been going on. Naruto casually laughed and offhandedly scratched his cheek as if he was having a normal conversation. Well, a lot has gone down since our fight in the raiding game. See, I got a sacred gear and fought a creepy fallen angel. I got my chakra back while also re-establishing a connection with Kurama, the beast that lives in my body, who merged with my sacred gear. Then I trained for a while with Sirzex and his peerage, and then we found more of Kurama's family, and then we fought Loki and I achieved my balance breaker. I didn't ask for a life story. Why are there so many of you chasing me? Well, I could always make shadow clones of myself, and when I got my chakra back that ability came back to me. Yeah, pretty useful ability, right? No. Riser screamed and wept as he flew through the air, flailing around madly in a frenzied attempt to escape the several dozen Naruto clones that chased after him on the ground, along the walls, and through the air. The Phoenix Devil had tears and snot streaming down his face as he screamed, I'm gonna die. They're gonna kill me. You can't die, silly. Remember? I doubt that's enough to convince you to stop. Well, I mean, if you want me to stress test it, then just say. No, no more. No more from you. Come on. Where's that proud devil I met all those months ago? He's become a traumatized shell of himself that's scared of what would happen if he went outside. You can't be scared of going outside just because of what people might say or do. I was scared that if I went outside, I'd somehow be cursed to meet you again. He tossed a fireball back and popped a clone only for several more to appear and lunge at him, which as it turns out was a completely rational and legitimate fear to have because you were right here with an army of yourself ready to abduct me. We didn't abduct you. You snuck into my room and dragged me out kicking and screaming without my consent. Yeah, but we had your sister's and your peerage's consent, which doesn't make it abduction. Just an unwelcome play date. Which makes you the bratty little kid that doesn't want to play with others. That's not a healthy mindset to have in a growing young boy. Fuck you. As Riser flew around and the tsunami of clones chased close after him, the peanut gallery on the balcony of the basement watched in total captivating silence. Gasper, Kaneko, Irina, Xenovia, and Roswise watched from above as fire and clones flew in every direction. Irina tilted her head. You know, it's never been exactly obvious, but does anyone else think Naruto-san could be a sadist? Naruto always struck me as someone who uses the necessary power needed to end the fight as quickly as possible. Nothing exactly cruel or sadistic from any of his earlier fights. Xenovia piped up before shrugging, but I completely agree with you right now. He looks like he's getting some real enjoyment out of this. Not so much like a Kano Fukabucho does when she hits an enemy and then she starts to writhe and giggle to herself, but more like he's just making some great entertainment for himself. Understandable. Senpai is probably milking this for all he can get now. I heard about Riser-san a lot from the others, but I never got to meet him because I was still in the room. Gasper said beside Kaneko as they watched the show from above. He pulled out an uncooked bag of popcorn and passed it over to the Nekomata. As her eyes changed color and blue flames heated her hand enough to start warming the bag, he asked, "What was he like when you all met him?" Arrogant and extremely condescending. They noticed the slight change in the young girl's monotone that they could recognize as spite as she talked. He entered the club like it was a place made for him and draped his arm over Buckow's shoulder like they were already together. He put more stock into the fact they were both pure-blooded devils than how she felt or how uncomfortable she was with the arranged marriage. I guess I can see why Rias-san didn't get along with him very well, Roswise noted, but why does Naruto-kun get along so poorly with him? When he arrived, Senpai immediately started butting heads, glaring at him, pulling his arm off Buckow's shoulder, making his peerage arrive for a standoff. And even though he didn't know it, he was the one that gave Bucko the push she needed to stomp her foot down and say no to the arranged marriage. And when the rating game was ending, he was the one who took up the last battle and fought Riser like an animal. So was this before or after they fell in love? Before they fell in love, but after they started noticing and getting attracted to each other. It was a lot different back then. Senpai was all tsunere about joining and he and Bucko would snark and snap at each other. You all wouldn't be able to compare it to how they are now. Back then everyone just rolled their eyes and thought they should just bang and get it over with. A small frown showed on her face, which I guess they've done now. Good for them or whatever. Not like anyone cares or anything. Kaneko-chan. The white-haired girl looked down to see the bag of popcorn in her hands had caught fire and started burning. The others were leaning away from the blue flame engulfing the bag before Roswise stretched out her hand and released a quick splash of water. The soggy bag of burnt popcorn laid on her palm as they stared at it silently. Here you go, Gia-kun. The young vampire looked down at the bag forced into his hands impaled. Looking between it and the frustrated Nekomata, he pondered whether he should eat the bag to ignore the tension. The other girls sitting with him shook their heads and tried to warn him away from doing it. Enough! Riser finally stopped flying and dropped down in front of the original Naruto. He panted, drenched in sweat from exhaustion and fear, and pleaded to the whiskered devil. "Pete, please stop sending out your clones. I've had enough of them. Jay, just give me a break." Naruto clicked his teeth and let out a deep, long sigh before finally stopping. He shrugged, "Okay," and with a swipe of his hand he ordered his clones to disperse. A giant cloud of smoke exploded with them before settling down and opening up the extensive basement again. I guess that's enough tough love for now. Good. Riser collapsed and wept with joy. It's over. Not over yet. I'm just not rushing you with clones anymore. But I will be staying by your side every second of every day until you're somewhat back to normal. Riser blanked in horror as Naruto smirked. While I'm at school, you'll have a clone. During the day and night I'm sticking by your side. I'll even stay with you when we go to bed. Riser paled even more before Naruto clarified. Different beds, but we're sharing the room. Oh good. Anyway, the only way to break a phobia is to surround yourself with it at all times until you become accustomed to it. The blonde, pawn, smirked viciously, and luckily there's a lot of ways to do that when you have Narutophobia. That doesn't sound right at all. Hey, which one of us is crippled by fear? The two stared at each other before Riser lowered his head. That's right. So just trust me and let's hope for the best. Riser had so much he wanted to say in retort about trust and this tortoise training and how this man clearly had no idea what he was talking about. But the fear of incurring his wrath outweighed anything he could have said, and instead Riser meekly lowered his head and nodded. He looked over to a pair of Narutos that had survived the popping and were working together to meld some elements. What are they doing? Don't worry about those, me. Focus on this, me. Naruto pulled Riser up to his feet and wrapped an arm around his shoulder, ignoring the shudder going down the flaming devil's back as they walked along. You hungry? Want some ramen? I am not sure I've had that. Then let's have ramen. I own a nice little place my clones keep open while I'm at school or home. Let's go pay a visit. Riser groaned and wept to himself as he was led along. Devil, what is he doing? Issei-san is meditating. He is. Ravel looked at the brunette devil in surprise as he silently sat on the couch with his legs crossed and eyes closed. The young Phoenix lady was shocked to see the loud, always booming young man now sitting silently and so focused he didn't even notice the people around him. Does he normally do this? No, this is a new development, Yuto said as he came out with a tray of tea and snacks, offering them to Asia, Ravel, Akano, and Rias as they relaxed in their special lounge. Apparently while you were picking up Riser-san, Bucko got a notice from Beelzebub-sama. Beelzebub-sama believes that Issei's growth has reached unprecedented levels, and wouldn't be surprised if some of the evil pieces in his body could have mutated by now. Mutations only rarely occurred in individuals whose talent had greatly exceeded their projected worth with their evil piece, and this forced the evil piece to change in order to catch up. Rias was proud to hear that her servant had grown strong enough to change the evil piece she had given him, and he also thinks that Issei could find the steps to reaching even greater power if he looked within. He's searching his own consciousness for an answer? Actually, in this case I think Ajuka meant looking inward to his sacred gear. Azazel piped up, walking by and picking up a biscuit before snacking on it. Issei has already reached balance breaker, which in most cases would be the upper limit of one's abilities, but his sacred gear is a Longinus and has Diedrich the red dragon dwelling within it, so its potential is vast. Akano looked back at their teacher, but what can Issei find in his sacred gear that would help him? Well, it's an ancient weapon that's been used by and imprinted on by hundreds of previous wielders before Issei. They all looked at the silent brunette as he dove into the depths of his mind. Who knows what he'll find in there? Devil, fuck, this is boring. Naruto's senpai made it sound like diving into the subconscious was fun, but this is dreary and sad. Issei had finally reached his destination after some serious concentration and entered the depths of his sacred gear. One moment he was on the couch, listening to the girls speak about their classes and the upcoming trip to Kyoto with Asia's innocent questioning and Ria's immense interest slipping through. The next it was silent. He opened his eyes and he was surrounded by an empty white void that just wasn't natural in any sense of the word. He started to walk around in order to find any kind of notable change or landmark he could note. Only after a few minutes of walking did he finally find what he was looking for. There were several rows of wooden seating curved around each other, like the seats of a courthouse or how he imagined what the people in Parliament sat on. And in those rows of seats were people draped in cloaks and hanging their heads in silence without even acknowledging his existence. Issei stepped forward and gulped nervously before raising his hand. Hi there everyone. My name is Issei Hyodo, the newest wielder of the boosted gear. I guess in these circumstances that would make all of you my senpais. So as the new vessel I guess I can safely say that I'm not exactly the strongest wielder of boosted gear, as pretty much everyone and anyone has been telling me without hesitation. Issei muttered that last part to himself with some spite before continuing. Anyway, I've recently achieved balance breaker and gained some amazing power, but lately I've realized that even this current level of skill probably won't be enough to handle the threats ahead of me. So I wanted to come to all of you for some advice on how you think I could be using the boosted gear a little better. Juggernaut Drive. Issei blinked in surprise, shocked to hear such an immediate answer from the spirits resting in his sacred gear. He remembered the name of that technique Diedrich told him about that would allow him to achieve immense power and strength but at the cost of his sanity and life. He chucked, oh, okay. Well, I'll definitely take that into consideration, but is there anything else? Like how did all of you tap into the sacred gear? Juggernaut Drive. Yeah, okay, that's great, but is there any other things I could be using instead of sacrificing my life to? Juggernaut Drive. Juggernaut Drive. Juggernaut Drive. Juggernaut Drive. Issei's eyebrow twitched in annoyance as the cloaked figures around him continued to mutter and groan the same words to themselves in unison. But after a moment Issei finally noticed that the voices of the people around him sounded empty and utterly lifeless. The young devil walked over to the closest figure to him and leaned down. The older man hiding his face under his hood stared ahead blankly and continued to repeat the same words again. He waved his hand in front of his face. Hello? Juggernaut Drive. Juggernaut Drive. Juggernaut Drive. Jugger. He stepped back and looked around the empty space to find the same expression and lack of life in everyone he saw. As he walked by them, he shook their shoulders, whispered in their ears for a response, and snapped his fingers in front of their faces, but still he got nothing. Coming in here, he had expected to find some boisterous, loud individuals that had wielded his gauntlet in the past and took great pleasure in the fights they had survived. He hoped he might get some hints on how to get stronger now that he had achieved Balance Breaker, or possibly get chewed out for using a portion of the Vanishing Drive and fusing it to their scale mail. Instead, he found himself in a land of white-clad zombies void of all individuality and thought outside of reaching the dangerous powerful state Issei swore he would never touch. As he walked around, Issei found one person who looked a little different from the others. He was by far the youngest, being close to Issei's age or possibly even younger. The young man had one of those damn blasted handsome boy faces. Just like Kiba. But with black hair that had bangs down to his face and solid black eyes that were just as lifeless as the rest. And just like them, he was repeating the same words over and over again. Damn, even other kids were swallowed up by this thing. Huh? Issei patted the young man on the shoulder even though he still didn't earn any kind of response in doing so. He felt sorry for the poor youngster who succumbed to the allure of the boosted gear's power, and even for all the others that sacrificed their lives in identity. He stood up and looked around. All of these people used that Juggernaut Drive, huh? They were desperate for the power within their grasp and sacrificed a life of possibility to reach it. Issei looked back in surprise to hear a familiar voice. Oh, hey senpai, didn't think I'd see you here. Though I guess you're used to delving into your subconscious to see Kurama-san, so this isn't anything new. Bet you could do this just putting a hand on my shoulder, huh? Naruto looked down at him in surprise and blinked in shock before Issei turned back to the cloaked boy in front of him. Did these people really give up their lives just for strength? Strength has an allure to it that you can't possibly quantify until the opportunity presents itself. Naruto walked over and knelt down beside the hooded boy. The whiskered man showed a sad, wistful smile as he gently patted the muttering boy on the head. I guess even victory wasn't worth it in the end if this was the result, huh? Senpai, that's a bit rude, don't you think? You don't even know the kid. There's a chance in the future when you'll be tempted to gain power and tap into the Juggernaut Drive. So you'll need to keep your resolve and not bend to the will of that temptation. The whiskered man looked back at him and gave him a bright smile. I look forward to seeing what you can do in the future, Issei Hyodo-kun. Devil, Issei's eyes opened and he then shuddered in disgust. That was horrifying. Oh, welcome back Issei. Rias greeted with the others as the pawn stood up and stretched his legs. How did going into your sacred gear turn out? It was a total bust. I got no help at all, and I saw something really creepy at the end. Hey everyone. Naruto greeted the group as he and Riser walked into the lounge. Me and Riser are heading to the ramen shop. Anybody want to come along? Asia sat up. Oh, I would like to go again, Naruto-san. I'll come too, Rias said. Revel, would you like to join us? And me? I've never had the dish you speak of. Is it any good? It's the best in the world, and Ria's recipe is still our best product. Come try some for yourself. The blonde smiled as he invited the others before looking at his fellow pawn. What about you, Issei? You want to come? Sure senpai, but I feel like we should really clarify things now before we go any further ahead. Issei stood up and faced Naruto directly. The blonde tilted his head curiously and the others watched in silence as Issei patted his shoulder. You really shouldn't try to go for the pretty boy smile with a face like yours. Kiba can pull it off, but he's naturally handsome. You on the other hand have a face that takes serious time to get accustomed to. So you should avoided smiling and trying to sound too friendly, okay? I don't know what you're talking about, but how about instead of a bowl of ramen, one just save us the time and feed you your fucking teeth? See? That threatening glare and detestable attitude. That's the senpai I know. Devil, Riser and Ravel had been staying at the Arashi Heights for nearly a week now. The young lady of the Phoenix House was accepted with open arms by the people around her as she explored the world of humans for the first time. She was joined by at least one member of the group at all times and could explore this new world at her leisure. Riser's time here was noticeably different, in the fact that Naruto was sticking by his side and tormenting him all the way. The former boastful, arrogant Phoenix had made some progress over the last few days. He no longer confined himself to rooms away from others and could walk around by himself, even though Naruto still didn't leave him alone. Hey, Rias walked over to Naruto as he came out from the fridge and drank his water. The redhead was dressed in a bikini with a towel draped over her arm. How are things going today? Same as usual. Making some progress but not enough to settle things already. Naruto tightened the cap on his drink before looking down at her swimsuit. He caught himself staring at her breasts and the curve of her body longer than he intended to. Man, he missed sharing the same bed as her. They may have only had sex once and done some heavy petting in the shower, but now Naruto was longing for the chance to experience that carnal pleasure with her again. Despite his better judgment, he imagined what it would be like to approach her now and take her lips, pressing her to the wall and kissing as their bodies molded together. The sensation of her breasts pressing against his chest and his hands squeezing her hips. Hearing that moan from her, that would be the start too. Oh shit, he was staring, and she was smirking. Crap, how long had he just been looking at her? If there's something you'd like to see, then you can come upstairs. We're all going to the pool on the roof, and there you can have an excuse to look at me. She purred in an alluring, sultry voice that she obviously knew had a clear effect on him. He felt a heat under his collar as she shifted her arms around so she was holding her towel by her stomach and chest, just coincidentally pushing up her breasts for him to see. Also, it's surprisingly warm and sunny out today, so I need to put on some sunscreen. And there are just some places I can't reach by myself without some big strong hands to help. Damn it, can you stop tormenting me? I'd love to go upstairs and... He almost let his tongue slip and say the many unspeakable things he'd like to do with her before calming down, have fun, but Riser's still downstairs and we're in the middle of something. His fingers drummed against the side of the bottle before he asked, hey, how long do we have to offer this help to Riser? Not that he shouldn't get help, just, I'm not sure what else we can do. Maybe you should try handling this with a softer touch. Rias offered. I know Riser rubbed you the wrong way and you really wanted the opportunity to get back at him. But now that you have, I think it's time that instead of intensity, you approach him with empathy. She patted him on the chest. Use that big, beating heart of yours to reach out and make a connection. It worked on me, and I'm sure the others would agree that it's your most valuable feature. Naruto looked down at her hand against his chest and sighed. She leaned up and kissed his cheek before making her way up to the rooftop to join the others around the pool. The whiskered blonde stood silent for a few moments and reconsidered what to do next. Got a problem? What do you think, Kurama? Is Rias right? In my experience, she's usually pretty much always right. So then I should be trying to connect with Riser instead. It sounded obvious, but Naruto's tone was still rather annoyed. He opened the fridge up again and pulled out another water bottle before making his way to the elevator. Of course, that's the right answer. And you don't seem too happy with it. Man, I really wish I could have been there when you met this guy. What exactly did he do that affected you this badly? It isn't really anything he did. No, I mean he pissed me off with how he acted and how he was treating Rias like some kind of fucking prize, but I didn't think it got to me or anything. It wasn't what he did so much as what I could or couldn't do in response. Naruto groaned and ran his hand down his face. I had grown so tired and numb to everything while I was alone after coming to this world, and I didn't want to get attached to anything again. But despite my best efforts, Rias wormed her way in, and then Riser came threatening to take her away. And we both know how you act when something you care about is threatened. Yeah, and this was between the points where I was attempting to stay unattached and then going full in on joining everyone in the peerage. It was the first time in a long time where I felt motivated, and he was the first person to get a rise out of me by pissing me off. So even though I'm stronger now, better now, and with people I cherish, when I see Riser I feel like all of that is gone.
And hearing Rias say it like that pretty much confirms this stupid feeling.
He got the best of your emotions at your lowest point and now you can't help but feel like that again even now. It might be normal for people to regress like that if they aren't focused. Naruto walked into the elevator and hit the basement button as he leaned against the wall. So how should I try and connect with Riser? Even if it wasn't hard for me to empathize with him, I doubt he wants much pity or any kind of emotion from the guy who caused his panic in the first place. He stopped and heard his fox friend laugh at his predicament. What's so funny? It really has been such a long time that you've forgotten, haven't you? You used to hold a terrible grudge against that Pain fellow when he attacked the leaf. Yet despite everything you were able to make a connection with him and change his mind. Even though this man might have caused problems for you and the woman you love, is it really so much harder than it was back then? Man, he could be an idiot sometimes. Naruto walked out as the elevator arrived and looked over the railing to see Riser actually fighting back against the clones around him. A short crop of blonde hair was growing over his head after failing to shave it these last few days and he was looking closer to his old self. However, his demeanor still had a ways to go to match the confidence and assuredness he had once before. Naruto jumped over the balcony and landed on the floor before calling out, "That's enough for now. Take a break." The clones all popped and Riser dropped to his ass to take a breath. He approached the tired Phoenix and held out a bottle for him. "Here, cool yourself off." Riser looked between the bottle and him a few times before leaning away. "Did you do something to it or put something in it?" "No, it's just water. Take it." Riser still hesitated but slowly took the bottle before gingerly taking some sips. When he noticed no immediate aftereffects, he took a longer swig and nearly downed the whole bottle. He and Naruto stayed in relative silence together before the whiskered blonde finally spoke up. "What was it about our fight that messed you up so bad?" Riser paused and looked up at him in confusion. "You remember coming at me like a beast possessed, right?" "Okay, I'm sorry about that. But there has to be more to it than that, right?" Naruto slowly sat down across from Riser and crossed his arms. "You can't have gotten scared this badly just from a fight where I was only able to fight back like that for a little while. Was there anything else?" Riser squeezed his bottle tightly and nodded. "Losing to you, being beaten and handed my ass like that, was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I've lost, but those were more political matches where me foregoing a victory was for the better. But with you it was a complete and total loss I had no chance of stopping. I had never felt like that. So, completely overwhelmed." "You didn't think you were the strongest in the world, did you?" Riser scoffed. "Of course not. I'm not even the strongest person in my family, but I was sure that as long as I faced others around my level then I could win. Pure-blooded devils have so much more power and ability than others, and I was sure that power could win me any fight. It could help me do anything until that rating game. All that strength and power and immortality. And I was still beaten and outmatched by some newly resurrected devil that had barely gotten used to his new life. Actually, if you think about it, Rias is the one that landed the finishing blow. Yeah, I remember, but I also look back at it as a complicated mix of fear and arousal." Riser shamefully admitted. "I mean, she never looked sexier than with that look of pure power on her face before she wasted me." Naruto felt a bead of sweat run down his cheek. "I'll take your word on that." "Anyway, after the rating game finished I was left reeling. Was it just a freak accident? Could I fix it if I tried again? Would I just lose no matter what I tried? I kept thinking about it over and over again and I couldn't stop imagining getting beaten like that again if I did. After a while I just got scared of going outside, facing things I couldn't handle, and losing like that again. And then I ended up here." Riser frowned and looked up at Naruto. "So thanks for that, you bastard." "Well, that's what you get for thinking you're strong just because you were born with a little power," Naruto callously said as Riser sighed and slipped on his drink. "There's always someone stronger waiting to meet you in the world. My teacher told me a long time ago, there are people in this world younger than you, but stronger than me." Naruto crossed his arms and nodded. "I have a feeling that advice holds even more weight here than it did in my world. Is there a point to this where I don't feel even more miserable than I did before?" "I'm getting to that." Naruto snapped back before speaking. "I want to tell you that even if you aren't strong enough now, there are ways to get stronger. Finding a reason to get stronger will always lead to a growth you can never begin to expect. I found that with Rias and the others." He opened and closed his fist. Fighting with them and trying to keep them safe has made me push myself in ways I haven't for a long, long time. Maybe you should figure out something worth fighting for instead of just your status as a pure-blooded devil. Like your sister or your peerage. Something worth fighting for, huh? Riser finished his bottle and squashed it before tossing it aside, and Rias is yours, right? Yeah. Seeing her happy and protecting her has been enough to push me forward through all the walls and blockades I didn't think I could get through anymore. You really love her, don't you? Yes, I do. Riser chuckled and stood up. Well, I'm glad to know my former fiancé found someone who cares about her so much. And she's enough of a romantic that I'm sure you'll be able to burrow yourself into her heart if you keep being that sappy. Naruto noticed that Riser's demeanor was already seeming more confident and assured than he had been before. Chalk one up for Rias and her advice. Still, despite his better judgment, he couldn't help the little competitive spirit that burned inside at the sight of Riser's cocksureness returning. Well, I think I've already dug myself into her heart deep enough. We've gone on dates, battled gods, overthrew corporations, and shared a never mind. What was that? Nothing. Forget I said anything. You shared a bed? It slipped out and... He saw the inquisitive look on Riser's face and sighed before whispering, Rias and I have already done it, recently. You mean sex? Yeah, but don't tell her I told you, alright? We're supposed to be keeping quiet about it, and I'm sure she'd be annoyed if she found out. A massive typhoon of flames and heat exploded off of Riser's body and nearly knocked Naruto off his feet. He shielded himself from the immense wave of fire before it slowly died down and revealed Riser again. The Phoenix Man stood with more confidence now, his eyes set in a stern gaze with his flowing gold hair returned to its former splendor. Did your hair just grow back from the fire? Could you always do that? So you've already bedded Rias. Riser spoke firmly before shaking his head. I shouldn't be surprised. You have a knack for destroying my expectations completely and without reprieve. No, me beating you in a rating game and me sleeping with Rias should not be considered in the same area. Where is everyone right now? Huh? Naruto blinked at the firmness in Riser's voice. All the hesitation and fear now completely gone as the devil recovered from his slump in an instant. They're up on the roof swimming in the pool. Alright then. Riser turned away and started walking. You're right, Naruto Uzumaki. I must reach a goal and fight for something in order to grow stronger. The man I was before. Both the prideful fool who didn't know his place and the pathetic lump of meat that feared everything. They are both gone. I will be someone better, someone more, and today is the day I will start making that change. Naruto blinked. Oh, okay. Alright man, that's awesome. And to commemorate this new life I'll live, I'll make one more fond memory of the man I used to be before I make that change. I'm going to go look at Rias in her bikini and commit the sight to memory for the rest of my life. A pair of flaming wings spread from Riser's back, and like the mythic beast of legend he flew. Reborn from the ashes of the man he once was. He flew into the elevator and burst through its ceiling as he rocketed up the shaft straight to the top. Hey, you did it, Naruto. You cured him. Now you don't have to worry about rehabilitating him or checking up on him or nothing anymore. And all that's left is for him to get a gander at Rias mostly naked and you'll be free. Congratulations. No, you're supposed to be feeling joy and relief right now. What's with this overwhelming sense of anger and fury? You feeling alright? Devil. Almost there. Riser's wings flapped as he soared up the elevator shaft straight to the top. Once he reached the roof, he'd stare at Rias' enticing frame and feel complete in his rehabilitation. It felt so good to become a better and fuller person. Wind cage. A ball of torrent air swirled around Riser and caught him off guard. The Phoenix Man was confined to the same spot as Naruto came flying up the elevator shaft to reach him. What are you doing? Stopping you from looking at Rias. Why? I'm just celebrating my recovery. I don't want you to celebrate by ogling my girlfriend. I don't see the big deal. All he wants to do is stare at her in a bikini. I'm sure Issei is doing the same thing as we speak. Don't remind me, when did you become so jealous? Riser roared and filled the cage of wind with fire before it exploded and he freed himself. Naruto scowled and his wings flapped forward until he slammed into Riser's chest. The two struggled and fought in the air before they slammed into one of the shaft doors and flew into a hallway. Naruto kicked off Riser's body and stood between him and the stairway towards the roof. The whiskered blonde took a stance against his flaming counterpart as they scowled at each other. Riser, I'm really happy that you've been able to come to some kind of peace and find your confidence again. But I really don't want to cause you to regress again, because if you try and stare at my girlfriend, I swear I'm gonna kick your ass harder than I did before. Is it too much to ask just to look at Rias once while she's in a bikini? Not at all. Yes. Riser lowered his stance and Naruto clicked his teeth. Riser, I'm a lot stronger than I was back then. I want you to know that I gave you a chance to step back. Naruto launched himself forward and punched at Riser's face. He moved far faster and with much more power than he did the last time he faced Riser in battle. Which made it surprising that Riser ducked under his punch and countered with a flaming fist that sent Naruto flying down the hall. He rolled on the carpet for several meters before stopping himself and patting the cinders off his shirt. What the fuck? How'd you do that? You are a lot stronger and a lot faster than when we last fought. But in case you forgot, I've been running and fighting your clones for several days now without breaks. Riser's eyes shifted around like an unstable maniac as he grinned. Your subtle movements. Your shift in weight. Every little thing you do when you attack. I've memorized them all. And I'll avoid it all until I reach the top. Riser cackled madly and dashed up the stairs towards his goal. Motherfucker. Naruto immediately gave chase, charging up the stairs and hot on Riser's tail as they crossed multiple levels in the span of seconds. Get back here. He created water from his demonic power and started lobbing them up at Riser. They pelted his body and created steam as they nearly reached the roof. I am not letting you sneak a peek. I would never do something so tasteless. I'm going up there and making my intent as clear as possible. Don't make it sound like it's noble or anything. It's not like it's really all that bad either. It's not the worst thing in the world to look at someone in a swimsuit. Hell, I'm sure there are people up there now doing it as we speak. Riser. Naruto formed a Rasengan in hand and started adding water to its center. I protected Rias from your misguided desires before, and I will do it again. I will strive and fight for this reward. Riser raised his hand and released a pillar of flame at Naruto. If you want to sneak a peek at her, then you'll have to get through me, get stronger, because I'll never let you through. Naruto's attack landed against the front of the fire and released a massive vortex that overwhelmed the flame and Riser on the other side. Water Demon's Rasengan. The surge of water blasted Riser through the door to the roof and into the air. He sailed back before crashing into the water and making a giant splash that spread out everywhere. Naruto leapt onto the roof and landed on the water's surface while Riser floated on his back. Hee, I guess I still have a ways to go before I reach that point. Riser solemnly accepted his defeat and closed his eyes. No wonder she chose you to take to that magnificent point of no return. Damn right. Naruto said with determination as Riser passed out beneath him, and I'll always be here to stand in your way if you try that shit again. Don't you forget it. Naruto looked around and realized all of his friends were staring at him in shock and confusion. He saw Rias sitting beside a Kano and looking at him in surprise after he had burst through the door and caused such a huge scene with Riser. He looked around before spotting Revel. Hey, I fixed him. Your brother's doing a lot better now. No need to thank me. Just keep an eye on him, and make sure he doesn't try to sneak a peek on anyone again. I guess I was wrong. Akano said with a defeated shake of her head. You both make each other stupid. Devil, do we make each other stupid? Naruto flinched and looked down at Rias as she laid against his side on the couch. Why do you say that? Just something Akano said earlier that's on my mind. What do you think? I think she's just teasing us. She's the stupid one. You're right. It's her, not us. Exactly. The couple nodded in complete and total agreement before their belief petered out into total shame. Sounds like you two have resolved to be completely and totally ignorant. They flinched and looked back to see Azazel standing over them. A sign that you two are truly hopelessly in love. He laughed and expected some kind of indignant rebuttals but instead found them both glaring at him. Whoa, what's with the evil looks? Aren't you two happy? Riser's finally gone home and things can go back to normal? We haven't forgotten what you did. You made a spectacle of our first night together for everyone to see. Of course I did, it's a time to be celebrated. And to be fair, I told the peerage, but you two let it slip to Revel and Riser. If you don't want people other than your friends to know, then you should keep a tighter lid on it. They both scowled at him as he rolled his eyes. Succumbing to my lust was the reason that I fell from heaven and became a fallen angel. I won't ever decry or demean others for the love and pleasure they seek. I think moments like that should be shared with everyone, but I guess you two don't share that sentiment. But even if you don't, you should celebrate this next step in your relationship. So I've got a gift for you too. He walked in front of the couch and stood in front of them before taking out 2 bottles of pills from his pocket. He handed them over and smiled as he did. Naruto and Rias looked at their odd gifts before looking up at Azazel. What are these supposed to be? Many fallen angels fell one way or another, and some of them reveled in lust as well. Ways to enjoy it most. Ways to benefit from it. Devils and angels have found their own ways to circumvent the downsides of intercourse, and what you're holding is ours. Azazel smirked. Those pills were developed to counterattack sexually transmitted diseases and viruses caught during sex. The young couple's eyes widened in shock before they looked down at the pills again. You mean? You take one of those and for a whole month you don't have to worry about catching anything if you have unprotected sex. Oh, and these too. He pulled out another bottle of pills and handed them to Rias. Take one of those and you won't have to worry about the risk of getting pregnant. The effects will last until you have your next cycle, and then you'll have to take another one. Azazel stepped back and smirked. You two discovered the pleasures of love, and now I'm offering them to you without consequence. Enjoy. The two lovers watched him walk away as they were left alone in the room, stunned silent with the pill bottles in their hands. Naruto looked down at the sheer number of them and realized that if this was true he wouldn't have to worry about STDs or catching anything for years. The thought sent his mind reeling before he chuckled. He's messing with us, right? Of course he is. Rias agreed, her eyes not straying from the bottles as her cheeks lightly dusted with pink. He always does. There's a chance these are just candy, or placebos. The young couple were in total agreement, skeptical of this miracle drug that Azazel conveniently handed to them to avoid their ire. Rias and Naruto looked at each other in silence. Without a word they popped open the bottles and took a pill each. Rias popped the birth control pill in last and swallowed before whispering, "We could always go and test it." Yes. Yes we could. They wasted no time running to an empty room and testing the drug out for themselves. Devil.